So the two big stories today happened earlier. The Trump indictment is suspended. I don't know exactly why, but the grand jury was sent home again, which means there will not be any movement this week. I don't know if that means there won't be an indictment, but it's starting to look like Donald Trump won. And the reason this is significant, as much as I'm kind of over talking about it to a certain degree, this is the follow-up. We've been talking about it all week. We were worried that Donald Trump would be arrested, the first former president in history to be arrested on some kind of criminal charge. But it looks like Donald Trump calling it out, creating a press storm, likely put pressure that resulted in this going away. I think that if Donald Trump didn't say anything, then it likely would have happened because there was no pushback. Now, a bunch of these more, middle of the road conservative types are calling Trump a grifter over it. He raised $1.5 million, probably more. I think Trump did the right thing. The other big news is that Kari Lake has won her appeal. Now, the corporate press, once again, is saying Kari Lake loses most of her appeal. And it's like, what does it mean, losing most? Oh, you mean she filed an appeal with a bunch of arguments and they actually accepted some of it? Yeah, that's big. Signature verification is being kicked back to the lower court for re-review. It's moving forward. I don't know how far it'll get. Maybe the lower court will just say screw off because they're not gonna want to listen to it. But potentially, if this goes back to the lawsuit, if this goes back to actually addressing signature review issues, then something might happen. Perhaps they actually have to go and review the signatures and then start disqualifying them. I don't know for sure, but we'll talk about it. And then we got a whole bunch of crazy news about layoffs. Apparently, Indeed is laying off people. We've got Walmart shutting down stores and laying off people. Stores are no longer carrying eggs. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's basically what we do here. And it looks like the economy is starting to get pretty bad. So before we get into all that, head over to timcast.com. Click that join us button and become a member to support our work directly. Once you do, you'll get access to uncensored members-only shows, which go live Monday through Thursday at about 10 p.m. at timcast.com. And you'll get access to our members-only Discord server. If you've been a member for at least 6 months or you sign up at the $25 level, you will have access to the call-in portion of the show. We can only really do about 3, 4, maybe 5 call-ins per day because it does take like 20 minutes to go through all those calls, but it is probably the coolest thing that we do all day. I mean, it's my favorite part of the day at this point. We just started doing it. It was Ian's idea. It's brilliant. It's really cool to hear from you guys when you do call in. We screen callers. We try and get the best questions that we can. And then you're actually on the show. So become a member and join in because I think this is one of the most valuable things that we can do for you guys in terms of getting access to the guests and us, as well as building community. But also, head over to trashhouserecords.com and pre-order our new song, Bright Eyes. As you can see, it says 0 songs right here because it comes out tonight at midnight. So if you order it now, it counts towards our next week of sales. And here's why this is important. Maybe you like our music. I really do appreciate it. Maybe you support our cultural endeavors. I appreciate that a whole lot as well. We have been banned by Bandcamp for no reason, and it's probably just because they don't like us politically. They do not want us getting a foothold in cultural spaces. Well, sad news for them. We don't need them. For now, we're using Amazon, which is not perfect, but we do have alternatives where we're going to pick up more song sales, other websites that will be live this coming week. The last 3 songs, and yeah, well, that's too bad. So pre-order the song if you want to help us stick it to the man once again. If you like the music that we produce, we will keep producing more. With the rollout of this song, we are starting to gear up into getting new artists and more artists and expanding beyond just the 4 songs that we'll have released so far. So again, trashhouserecords.com. Don't forget.
A video production company that produces content designed to reach people outside of our tribe. We want to turn new people onto liberty. I'm also the host of Kibbe on Liberty on Blaze TV.
Right on. Thanks for coming. I'm looking. The stream went down for a second for some reason.
Welcome back. Oh yeah, we got F's in the chat.
For the people who are watching live, stream going down has to be on YouTube's end, not ours, because everything we got going is good. So we'll just carry on.
Yeah. What was that? So it's Free the People.
freethepeople.org.
And yeah, they might have missed your intro there. Just give them a quick rundown again of that.
Well, I'm going to give a longer version because it's so much cool.
Go deep.
Matt Kibbe, president of Free the People. Free the People basically produces video content designed to reach people out of our tribe. We want to turn on a new generation to the values of liberty and cooperation. We want to get into that cultural space where I think most people live. And I'm also the host of Kibbe on Liberty on Blaze TV.
What was the recent documentary you guys did?
The most recent one, well, the one I was talking about was one about Thomas Massie called Off the Grid with Thomas Massie. We made it 3 or 4 years ago, and it's about the down-to-earth values of someone that lives off of the land. He built his own home by hand from materials that he found on his farm in Kentucky. He's 100% green guy because he likes the independence of not being dependent on the government who can flip off the switch. And that was recently featured in the New York Times as an example of this new generation of conservative libertarian Republicans who are reaching people outside of our tribe. There's a lot of disaffected liberals who love the environment. They want to live that green life. And Massie has a more compelling story than that one-size-fits-all authoritarian, we're going to force you all to live and eat fake meat.
Dig it.
Word. Let's carry on with the introduction.
Yeah.
Santa Claire's hanging out.
Hi, I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for Timcast.com.
I'm Ian Crossland. Love you guys.
And I'm Serge.com. Let's do it.
Let's jump into that first story. We got this one from the Daily Mail. Quote, they tell us to be peaceful. Trump issues another threat and tells Soros-backed animal, Alvin Bragg, to drop the Stormy Daniels case as grand jury is canceled for the rest of the week and questions grow about looming indictment. Manhattan grand jury members were told not to show up to court on Thursday. Sources tell DailyMail.com prosecutors are having trouble convincing the jury to indict Trump over hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. Trump is expected to fly to Waco, Texas on Saturday for a campaign event. Trump's also raised $1.5 million off of it. I think he's done absolutely the right thing. I think he's doing the right thing by continually calling this out. And I think only because he called it out are they backing down. So they don't convene the grand juries on Friday. That's what I've seen reported, which means not Monday, not Tuesday, not Wednesday, not Thursday. Every single step of the way, it's been kicked back. And now we don't even know if it's going to happen. So
So they get a chance. They want to convince the jury. But if they can't convince the jury, I think that means that they lose the case. I don't think that means you get to keep trying to convince them every day. But was there some legal precedent where you're allowed to be like, you don't believe me yet? All right, we'll see you again tomorrow, until they break the jury and make the jury go the way they want them to.
grand juries are not prosecutions. All they're doing is trying to get an indictment. So it's a preponderance of evidence. Hey, here's a picture of a guy near a crime scene. He may have done it. We've got a bunch of evidence. We want to bring it to trial. Okay, indict him.
And the jury's like, no, that's not enough evidence. So they're like, okay, well, we'll come back tomorrow and see if you change your mind. And if you don't change your mind, we're going to bring you back every day until you maybe change your mind. Like, what is this? What kind of duress is that to put a jury under? If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it.
Yes. I think there's exculpatory evidence that outright proves Donald Trump didn't do it. And they're desperately trying to do this anyway. But I think that Donald Trump calling this out and saying they're trying to arrest me is what caused this to basically start breaking apart. Yeah. High level of media scrutiny, political scrutiny. Alvin Bragg is probably sweating it. He issued a letter, sent it to Congress. I have a feeling that come next week it probably won't happen. Not to mention, I'm willing to bet when Democrats saw the news that Trump raised $1.5 million in 3 days, they were like, dude, you got to stop doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's good for your career and all, but you're filling his war chest.
I think this guy learned what every Republican primary opponent of Trump learned the hard way in 2016, which is this is what Trump is good at. This is feeding the narrative. Like, Trump is the headline all week long, and he's both playing the victim and kicking this guy's ass at the same time and raising a bunch of money. And I think the call came down from somebody and said, you're helping this guy and you're getting killed. You better stop. So it's politics. It's not a legal thing at all. It's about the narrative that they wanted to create. And this is what Trump is a master at.
That's why I think he came out and said ahead of time, it was such a skillful move to come out and say, they're going to arrest me next week. Because if he doesn't get arrested, his base is like, cool, that sounds good. If he gets arrested, they're enraged. They can't believe that this is happening to him. And the element of surprise that we've talked about a little bit, the perp walk photo that I think a lot of left-leaning journalists would have really liked to have published, it's gone, right? It doesn't have the same meaning. And so really Trump has come out as the winner in this scenario to the detriment of the Democrats. Like they completely miscalculated how he would handle the situation.
I wonder if it's that Alvin Bragg is this low-level nobody. You know, it's like, imagine you're the CEO of this big company and you're about to do a big merger deal or some big buyout, and then the janitor throws a water balloon at the other company's president. You're like, what are you doing? What is this? Like, so Bragg is this nobody, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to be famous. I'm going to indict Trump." And the Democratic leadership is like, what is this guy doing? He is making Trump's base fervent. He is riling them all up, filling his war chest. And then I wonder if he got a phone call and they were like, you need to stop.
See, I wonder if...
Absolutely happened that way.
Yeah. I also wonder if the New York AG, Letitia James, initially was like, we've got to move forward. We've been investigating Trump for like 3 years at this point. You know, someone has to bring charges against him. Alvin, you do it. And then it all backfired. She's like, stop immediately. You're making us all look bad. Like, he's kind of being thrown to the wolves, too. I would hate to be him right now.
They would do that?
No, probably
What?
not. This is just my crazy conspiracy theory side.
It's about justice.
Also, yesterday we talked about it, and Michael Cohen is apparently the one that paid Stormy Daniels $125,000. Trump is, from the evidence I saw yesterday, there was no evidence of Trump paying her anything. So maybe there is evidence of that I haven't seen.
No, there's...
Yeah, so
my understanding is there's no evidence. And what they're doing is that Cohen paid the money, and then in the legal bills that Trump paid is a comparable amount of money. And they're like, aha, that proves it. And it's like, no, it just proves that Cohen lied. And he went to jail for it because he's a liar. That's what he does.
There were some great AI perp walk photos of Trump, which make him look badass, I'll be honest. Because he's like screaming and fighting with the cops and like getting... Have you seen those? Did you guys see those?
Yeah, I did. But
Hilarious.
did you see the AI photos of Obama, Fauci, Biden being arrested?
I saw
I saw something about
Fauci.
Hillary Clinton.
I got a weird feeling inside when I saw those photos. You know, it's like a warm, fuzzy feeling.
Uh-oh, that's the AI being like, plug in. The world that you want is just a click away.
No, the warm, fuzzy feeling was like, you know, could there exist a world where it's like there's a picture of Obama and the cops are grabbing him and pulling him and he's like fighting. And I'm like, wow, it makes me so sad. And at the same time, like seeing that photo, knowing it's not real, it's kind of a weird, warm, fuzzy sadness. Because, you know, like Obama should be in jail. He should be arrested and criminally charged. And it's never going to happen.
I don't think he should.
What?
Because he was
He
the
killed
president.
a kid, dude.
Yeah, but he was president when he did
I don't
it.
care. What?
That makes it okay.
Yeah,
Well,
what?
Technically, yeah.
Would you feel that way if you hit someone like while drunk driving while the president?
What if
No,
Obama
right?
walked out into Fifth Avenue and just shot a kid in the face?
And then it would be like,
Well, he's a president.
he can do it because he's the president.
Like, if no, murder would be a different thing, but ordering a drone strike that collaterally kills an American kid. As the
Collaterally?
president,
No.
He targeted him.
What,
Did he
what,
target the kid?
Ian, what did the drone
Actually,
target?
no, you're right. I think he targeted a war criminal's son because he wanted to kill his family member.
No, full stop. Where was the country? Which country was the drone strike in?
I think it was in the Middle East. Was it Yemen?
Yemen. Have we ever been at war with Yemen?
Well, the Saudis are at war with Yemen.
Have
and
we ever been
are
at war with
funding
Yemen?
it.
Have we, the United States, declared war on Yemen?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, and what was the target in Yemen?
I don't know, a
A
restaurant.
civilian restaurant. So there is no circumstance where Obama is innocent in this.
I mean, when you're the president and you're in control of the military and you have a war enemy and you want to kill his family members.
We are
it's
not
like,
at war with Yemeni
well,
civilians.
I agree. We haven't been at war since World War II.
Yes, but we're not like you can make the argument that, well, you know, in Iraq and Syria, there's a war going on with there's an AUMF. The Congress authorized these of military force. Obama was like, what's this country we're going to be blowing up? It's Yemen, sir. Are we at war with them? No. And what's our target? It's a civilian restaurant. Blow them up. Get it done. What? There's literally no circumstance where that is not a capital offense. I'm sorry, that's worse. If Barack Obama walked out in the street with a gun and shot a kid, that is not nearly as bad as ordering a drone strike on a civilian restaurant using the might of the American military, a how much does a Hellfire missile cost to blow up
$600,000 or something more than that?
more than millions to blow up a bunch of civilians and an American citizen? That would be like Obama getting a group of a group of soldiers and ordering them to open fire on a Little League baseball game or something.
Well, what about dropping napalm on villages in Vietnam?
All of that is bad, dude.
But you don't imprison the guy, the commander.
No. Listen, everything that happened in Vietnam was complete BS. And yes, but the commander is not the president. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is an issue of the banality of evil. And if someone is ordered to drop napalm on civilians, yeah, I'm going to be in favor of them going to prison. You do not get to be like, but my boss told me to do it. And if Barack Obama is like, I'm going to rubber stamp blowing up civilians, I'm going to be like, well, then you get to go to jail. So if they want to come out and complain about Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels, my response is this. Wow, Donald Trump committed this crime, you think? Oh, okay, we're going to have to arrest him. I think he should get the maximum for this misdemeanor. Yeah, 11 months and 30 days. Donald Trump, no, don't give me that look. He has to go. And then afterwards, we'll send Obama to prison for life for the execution and murder of children. And
But what
civilians.
about like?
See, but you're
firebombing?
letting a lot of politicians off the hook, because I come
I'm just
from
starting
the
there, baby.
school of thought that all politicians are criminals, and particularly all chief executives have committed war crimes against humanity. So while we're arresting people and imprisoning them, let's grow the list. Let's not shrink it.
Who do you want to add?
We were talking about this before
Who
the
don't
show.
I want to add?
But we were talking about this before the show, and I mentioned this, and you were like, I'll take that compromise.
Yeah.
Like, I like Trump, but I will gladly accept him getting a few months on a misdemeanor charge if it means Obama gets life in prison for the things that he did. There's no excuse. But he was in charge of the military. Dude, if I ask someone to hold my weapons for me, like, I'm going to put you in charge of the weapons in this house, use it responsibly. And then he goes, okay. And then he grabs it and starts shooting a kid with it. I'd be like, okay, you're going to jail. Like, we're going to stop you and lock you up. We did not entrust you with our military arsenal so you could go and blow up civilians in a country we are not at war with. End of story.
It was the son of a terrorist. So it was like a war attack. It was like a war attack. It happened to be in Yemen, but that's where the kid was. Like, if the kid went to Jersey, we'll look out.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that
He'd probably been
He should
assassinated.
die because he's the child, a minor child of a
it's
terrorist.
war. I don't like war, but I mean, that's how war functions.
I think what he's saying.
Like, dude.
You kill the enemy's family. I mean, that's a tactic
What
in
he's
war.
saying is that Barack Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize, so stop it.
That's
Yes.
true.
Like, what about
He's
the
the
firebombing
good
of
guy.
Dresden in Germany? Should they have been executed? Who was it? The president? Truman? Was he?
Why are
there
you
yet?
conflating active warfare with declarations and the world involvement with a country is not at war with us, but Obama wanted to send a message, so he executed an American citizen by blowing up a civilian restaurant? Like, there's no comparison.
What's the war on terror?
Okay, so imagine if Barack Obama got mad at the Mexican drug cartels, so him and his buddies got a bunch of fully automatic rifles, went to the home of a bunch of Hispanic children who were friends with or had grown up with these cartel members, and started shooting a bunch of kids. Well, sorry, that's the war on drugs. Obama had no choice but to start shooting kids in the face.
If American government went to war with the cartels, you better believe family members will start dying.
In the United States, you are making the argument that we should not criminally prosecute Obama because the extrajudicial assassination of an American citizen in a country we're not at war with is justified because that was the son of someone we were targeting in a different country.
I think if you start prosecuting presidents for war crimes, after every president would go to prison, and then
Yes.
and then they wouldn't be able to do their job. It's like telling a cop they can't
Dude.
get rough with the guy they're arresting. It's at some point you got to let the president do war.
No.
I mean, it's
No.
the commander in chief of the military. What do you just want to just let other people win the war? I mean, what do you?
So I don't know what Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki was doing that was helping these terrorists win any kind of war other than drinking coffee and having to have been related to a guy.
No, man, they sent a message to the dad. They wanted to kill his son.
Yes, that's right. So yeah, it's called a war crime. Look, in war, there is a reason why we have. I think war crimes are a silly concept, right? Because it's like if you're at war, you're trying to win. But there is a difference between tactics and retribution. So like if we were to, if the United States was like, we're going to stop ISIS by any means necessary, and then they did a whole bunch of really messed up stuff like napalming cities and stuff, I would be mad about that. I'd be like, dude, we need to stop ISIS, but doing this is too far. But I understand it's military. We're talking about Obama dropping bombs on civilians who we are not at war with. All that's going to do is make the war worse. Like if people are at war with us and then you send in troops to a neighboring country and start executing kids, you are going to make more war and generate more enemies. Barack Obama should be in prison.
I'm thinking about the white phosphorus attack on Fallujah in 2003, where they use it as an illuminant because they were like, yeah, we're going to light up the sky so we can see our targets, but really it melts human skin. So they just dropped white phosphorus all in the city of Fallujah and just melted all these civilians' skin. That was George Bush Jr.
Oh yeah, George Bush can go to prison for all
He's
I care.
on my list. So yes, let's
I don't
do
know
that
the amount
too.
of Clinton's bombings in Bosnia. I know that Clinton
Bro,
was
the Clintons
involved
are
in
on our list too.
And then Trump's.
I think we'll go all the way with this. You keep racking up the names. We'll keep
What
calling
about
for
Trump
prison.
giving the drone bombing campaign to his generals? Is that not treason?
Donald Trump is imperfect. However, He was pulling troops out of the Middle East. He had no new wars. He was trying to get our troops out of Syria. I look at what Trump was doing as trying to stop these things. Granted, he inherited a lot of it from Obama, from George W. Bush, and that's bad. However, I look to who started it and who was trying to stop it. Donald Trump was trying to stop it. Barack Obama was escalating it. George W. Bush started it. I'm not going to hold that against Trump. Granted, there are some things I think Trump did that were bad that we need accountability for. I don't know if it goes as far as saying like Donald Trump was pulling troops out of the Middle East, so he increased drone strikes to maintain control of the territory. I'm like, I don't blame him for that. I blame Obama for that. Not that I like it or anything, but Obama was like blowing up kids. Now, granted, there is the story of the commando raid in Yemen, which resulted in the death of an 8-year-old American girl. That, if proven to be Trump's orders, then I believe Trump deserves prison for that as well. However, that story is still a bit of conjecture and we don't know. When it comes to Abdurrahman al-Awlaki, this is reported far and wide by like every major media news source and the family and, so you take it for what it is. All that really matters is, you know what? Indict them all. Indict them all. If they want to engage in this kind of foreign policy. But I got to say, man, I've had a lot of libertarians, and I don't know how you feel about this, telling me that Trump is the lesser of two evils, and I disagree. He crossed the DMZ into North Korea with no security detail. He helped to negotiate the Abraham Accords. A lot of that was Jared Kushner. I like that. He was trying to get our troops out of Syria. Very good. He crushed ISIS. Very, very good. He set a deadline for getting out of Afghanistan. I'm like, this guy's doing good stuff. I will take what I can get. Barack Obama was escalating it. George W. Bush was starting it. The Clintons were engaged in all of it. It goes all the way back. I'll take what I can get with Trump. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, the practical question is, I think the war on terror has been a disaster, and I'm channel my inner Ron Paul here and say we never should have done it, and we've made things far worse, and we've killed a lot of innocents and created lots of chaos. But the practical question for the next president, if it's Trump or somebody else, is how do you extract us from all of this without starting new wars? And I'm willing to grant that that's a messy process, and I would give Trump credit on all of those things for mostly moving in the right direction. Not always, but mostly moving in the right direction. And, he didn't get us out of Afghanistan, and I wish he would have succeeded at that, because the way Biden did it was a tragic shit show, or I don't know if we're allowed to say shit show.
Yeah, after 15 seconds, yeah.
I almost feel like they intentionally sabotaged Afghanistan to guarantee their ability to reinvade later if they want to.
It sure looks like that. I had there's a Congressman, Warren Davidson, who's been like a real hero, saying we got to get our guys out no matter what. And I asked him, is this just gross incompetence, the way we got out of Afghanistan, or was it purposeful? And he, in a very political way, said, I don't see how it can't have been purposeful, so that the lesson is don't ever get out of anything ever again, because it doesn't work.
And you have to wonder why they would abandon Bagram Air Force Base without notifying security forces in the country, why they cut all air support logistics. There's no way it wasn't intentional.
Why they left all that equipment and didn't decommission it with nanothermite. Like they didn't melt the machines before they just left them behind.
And
they were purposefully blocking private efforts. They had transportation, they had people, and all the State Department had to say was do it, and they blocked it.
Blinken testified today that there are still like over 175 Americans still there. Like they left people behind on purpose. Like there's no way that this wasn't intentional.
It gets worse, ladies and gentlemen. We got this story from the Daily Mail. The West has brought humankind to the brink of nuclear Armageddon with its decision to use depleted uranium ammo in Ukraine, says Russia's U.S. envoy. As it turns out, Britain is using depleted uranium tank busters. And so Russia is basically saying this is the doorstep of nuclear war. Now, I don't know. Is depleted uranium radioactive? I don't think
it is.
It is?
Yeah.
It is really
not extremely, but enough of it in high enough concentrations. It happened in Iraq. They shot it. It's in the dust under the sand. A lot of people were getting sick from like Gulf War syndrome. They were blaming. I think it was Gulf War syndrome. I'm not sure if they were using depleted uranium in the first Gulf War or not. But people were coming back sick, and they think a lot of it's radiation.
The British Defense Ministry confirmed on Monday that it would provide Ukraine with armor-piercing rounds containing depleted uranium.
I've been ringing the bell on this, man.
You have been. That's why I bring it up.
Uranium is a nuclear weapon. You can say tongue-in-cheek, hey, you stupid idiot. No, it's not. But listen, the Russian minister's acknowledging it. They consider it nuclear armaments. Maybe not nuclear weaponry as considered, but they consider it nuclear.
But and that's all that matters. They can now, as they are starting to do, use this as justification for the expansion into nuclear warfare. And this doesn't mean ICBMs, because people need to understand, I think the first thing we're going to see is probably nuclear artillery, which is they're going to load up a howitzer or some kind of artillery. They're going to fire a nuclear shell with a decently large payload. It's not going to be a megaton bomb or anything like that, but it's going to be massively devastating. These are very, very powerful weapons. So the first, they can argue nuclear war has already started with the use of armor-piercing depleted uranium. And then the U.S. will say, that's not true. Nobody thinks that's what nuclear weapons means. But of course, Russia and China are going to be like, these are nuclear weapons. This is radioactive stuff.
Yeah, this says here depleted uranium, both regular uranium and depleted uranium, and their immediate decay products emit alpha and beta particles and a small amount of gamma radiation. That's from EC.
Well, there you go, right there.
Yeah.
Radioactive weapons. So what comes next? Russia says, well, if they're using nuclear weapons, we need to respond in kind. Then we get lower yield nuclear artillery, massive explosions rocking Ukraine. Then what? The West escalates and uses low yield missiles.
I think there's also concern that the dust that's created by the depleted uranium is breathed in. A lot of it's really when it's in your body that can do a lot of damage. What's happening is they build tanks out of armor that are created with depleted uranium because it's so dense, you can't pierce it with a lot of weapons. So they need to make depleted uranium ammo in order to pierce the depleted uranium armor. And then the ammo ends up in the dust, in the dirt underneath your feet. That's the problem.
I mean, I got to be honest. This picture of how it works is really cool. You know, this gigantic artillery shell. Look at this. It's basically a gigantic cartridge, like a bullet, with a depleted uranium tail fin with a sabot around it. And then it fires, sabot disengages, and then rips through with a point. It's 2 times denser. It's nearly twice as dense as lead. That's why they use it. They say it's nearly unstoppable because of its density. So once it gets propelled, the inertia is just too powerful. It just rips through everything. I mean, that sounds pretty badass, to be honest. It's just horrifying.
Yeah, for a video game, I love it.
Right.
But for real life, it's not great.
The reason they have like the Hague and the war crimes and things, because like if you annihilate a country with depleted uranium, you're making it unlivable, essentially. If the ground's peppered with depleted uranium, good luck growing crops and raising a family on top of that. So it's like salting earth. I mean, it's definitely a heinous war crime in my opinion, but out of desperation and armored tanks that can't be penetrated, they've had no arguably other choice.
I think we may see some kind of I think World War III. I don't know how or when, but I think it for one reason, because all of the oil producing nations are teaming up. China we're working these deals to do oil deals, trade in yuan as opposed to the dollar, and the United States and NATO will never allow that. I don't know. What do you think, Matt? I kind of feel like military-industrial complex will be salivating at the thought of an opportunity to go to industrial-scale warfare or beyond. And the U.S. is going to be like, we're not going to let these countries do this. We will blow them up if we have to because we're not going to lose.
Yeah, I think they would love to have another war, regardless of the consequences for people. But one of the most frustrating things about this is we're escalating while we're demilitarizing our ability to produce energy. And this, I actually have friends in Ukraine and in that whole area. My wife and I go speak to free market groups in all of these countries, and our point was, why aren't you guys producing energy? You're banning fracking, you're destroying your economies, and you're basically made yourself completely dependent on your enemy's sources of energy, and all of this green stuff. There's a green deal in Europe that has already been implemented. This is the most destabilizing policy that empowers really bad guys. And I happen to be a libertarian. I think Putin is a horrible guy. I think he is a criminal for invading Ukraine. But I also think that Ukraine is an incredibly corrupt country. And I think the United States has no business in this, because if you want to protect yourself from Russia, do something for yourself. Like, clean up your own country, allow for the production of energy. And if you can't produce your own energy, allow for robust markets that allow you to buy the energy you need and not wait for Russia to shut off the pipeline. This is not rocket science. They haven't done it.
So Ukraine is banning fracking?
No, Ukraine doesn't do that, but Europe, and particularly
I see.
Germany and the UK and places like that.
Well, I think it's because, when I look at the internal conflict in the United States, I can only assume it is intentionally driven by our enemies. Like the woke left I look at what they believe in, what they're fighting for, and how insane it is, and how destructive it is, and how it is a major component in the victories for China. And I'm like, I kind of feel like they're doing it on purpose, like with TikTok, things like that. They talk about the Russian disinfo campaigns and all that stuff, and I'm like, well, we know China's been hacking and attacking us with cyber warfare for a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if a large component of the culture war is intentionally driven. And they did talk about this with Russia. They said it wasn't necessarily intended to win an election. It was intended to sow division in the United States. I'm willing to bet China's doing that to a great degree. That's what TikTok is.
Yeah.
I watched a video earlier where this woman was like, I am a bird. I am a bird. I am trapped in a human body. And like, that's the kind of thing that TikTok promotes. So if you have people in this country who are of sound mind saying, we cannot allow China to do the things they're doing with the Uyghur Muslims, et cetera, and then you're on a committee with one other person who goes, but I'm actually a bird, so I'd like to move this here and talk about what we're going to do about bird rights. And you're going to be like, what? Undivided power with this guy? China, the Chinese Communist Party knows we cannot function politically if half of our political system thinks they're animals or weird things and doesn't make any sense. And that's where we're being bogged. We have weights strapped to our ankles. I don't see how we win this one. I don't know, man. If the U.S. is on the verge of civil war or in one, or if the Democratic Party is just their whole die on this hill moment is removing the testicles of children, then it's just like, okay, I guess.
Fortunately, I don't think the goal is to win. I think it's more to coexist. Like, there's no real end game in diplomatic geopolitics. It's just about, can we survive together and thrive together? That can be done, but it can be done through trade. It's primarily trade.
I wish that's what the world was doing.
Yeah.
No one's doing that.
Trade? Trade?
Who's trying to coexist together?
Well, China and Russia at the moment. But like,
yeah. Okay.
Mexico and the United
I
States.
think
So
there
hold
is an
on.
element of diplomacy that is like, how can we work together
Against our common enemies.
against our common enemies, or in a way that allows me to continue doing the things that I like. I think the problem is, there are a lot of countries that feel morally compelled to insert themselves into issues and say you can't live that way, or part of our doctrine is that we have to expand our power. I mean, it doesn't have the isolationist boundaries that maybe we would like it to. If we could just all stay within our own countries and cooperate when necessary, it might be a different tale. But geopolitical diplomacy is
I think there's
totally
a bunch of bad actors, but I'm not as afraid of Russia and China. I think their economies are a house of cards as well. And my argument is, if we would get our house in order, if our allies would get our house in order, we would not be vulnerable to their shenanigans, because they don't have the resources to do what they do. And I could, quote Michael Malice's new white pill book, and pointing out that top-down systems collapse.
Yeah. Well, I agree, but that's why I'm saying I think the internal conflict is the problem we're facing.
Right.
If we can't...
But it's on us, right? We got to fix it.
Well...
Not just at this table,
yes,
but Americans got to get their act together.
But I feel like that's the attack they're levying against us. Mm-hmm. Making sure we can't... Like, TikTok is a huge component. Right now, you've got the Democrats trying to preserve it, and the Republicans are barely doing anything about it. They don't even know what the argument is.
Yeah, I think banning it's not right. At first, I'm
banning
like,
it, absolutely.
Yeah, because then it would lead to someone banning Twitter. And you don't want to start banning companies from the States. I mean, free the software code if you want to see what they're doing, what the algorithm's doing.
Fair point.
It's got to be like, and Elon might save us, and I'd hate to put all of our eggs in one billionaire's basket, but the solution to TikTok is an alternative that's not nuts, that's not manipulative, that allows the things we like, speech and argument and all the things that America's built on, as opposed to that crazy manipulation. And the problem is that these tech platforms have been centralized, and basically speech has been dictated by the FBI and CIA.
Who are you going to vote for in 2024?
I don't know yet.
Would you vote for Trump? I'm not saying like you should. I'm just asking, like, would you consider voting for him?
I was going to, until he screwed up lockdown so badly. I don't think I can forgive that.
That's a good point, man. I'm pretty much for Trump right now. We'll see what changes. DeSantis is, I feel like, is showing to be a big letdown. I would prefer Dave Smith. If someone said name a person and they would be president, I'll go Dave Smith. Assuming he wants to be, hasn't announced yet. In all practical reality, I'd probably end up voting for Trump.
What do you think of Vivek Ramaswamy?
I like a lot of what he's doing. The ESG stuff is fantastic. I don't, and maybe I'm agreeing with you on this. I don't think you cut off trade with China. I think you outperformed China, and he wants to isolate our enemies through state power, and I want to isolate our enemies from outperforming them. But I think he's quite interesting and quite provocative. In a lot of ways, he's probably doing what Dave wants to do, which is change the conversation. And this is a big debate within the Libertarian Party. Are we running to win? Or are we running to change the narrative so that we can actually talk about some of these things that the two parties never talk about? And
I think both, but you got to build, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, with the Libertarian Party, you got a lot of building that's got to happen. There's a percentage threshold that's got to be met, which means you've got to be serious contenders. But in the meantime, the victories you get is changing the conversation.
Yeah.
So, what do we got to do to get to a point where Dave Smith's on a debate stage with Biden and Trump? That would be tremendous. It would be fantastic.
they're never going to let him on the stage. They keep changing the rules.
Yep.
If he gets closer, they're just going to say, you know what, you need 20% in the polls to be on the stage. But the point is, with all of these platforms, how many times do we have to point out that Joe Rogan is bigger than all three networks right before an election combined, and point out that if we want to have that conversation outside of corporate media, we can do that now.
Yeah, and I also think that if Joe Rogan ran for president, he'd probably win. He'd probably beat them both.
I'd vote for him.
Now, see, I would vote for Joe.
I think a lot of people
Yeah.
would, because he's like, you listen to him and he's talking about cultural issues, which the right agrees with, but he's still somewhat of a moderate lefty kind of guy. So you kind of get a compromise, but he's just so popular.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's going to run or he should run. I'm just saying that kind of personal connection and gravitas is what you need. I'm thinking Trump. I think Trump's got a lot of bad about him, but I view him as a slight net positive, mostly on foreign policy. I don't completely blame him for the lockdowns. I somewhat blame him for the lockdowns. I think he surrounded himself with really bad people. I'm also thinking now, you know what, man? I'm willing to get him in the next 4 years if we can see more of that foreign policy. If it's more of secure our borders, bring jobs back here, and get our troops out of these other countries, make NATO pay its fair share. All right, well, then I'll take what we get domestically. But I think the economy will be good, and I think he'll do a better job.
Well, here's the thing. Like, as you continue to dig into the sources of gain-of-function experiments and all that crazy mad science that Fauci and NIAID was doing, that's actually a biosecurity program. And there's a reason, I suspect, why Rand Paul has switched to the Homeland Security Committee, because if you want to get to the bottom of COVID and you want to get to the bottom of gain of function and you want to find out whether or not American taxpayers actually financed the creation of a virus that created so much global disruption, you got to go after the national security state. This is not the healthcare industrial complex. It's national security. So these things are very much related. So whoever is going to be the next president is going to have to take on that. And this is some place where Trump failed. Let's
jump to this story from the Post-Millennial. Breaking. Arizona Supreme Court revives Kari Lake claim on signature verification. So I'll give you the simple version. Kari Lake filed numerous claims. They were dismissed by a lower court. Kari Lake appealed. And one very important component, one of the most important, made it through. Now, the corporate press is saying Kari Lake mostly loses appeal. If you're filing a lawsuit like this, you don't just say, here's my one complaint. You get as many as you can and throw them all out there, scattershot, and then see which ones stick. And Kari Lake got one, signature verification. When the argument is, not just in Kari Lake's case, but in Trump as well, the argument is too many signatures got accepted that should not have. That many of these probably didn't match, but they were letting them through anyway. When Kari Lake sued, they said, this is a procedure question and you should have sued before the election. Well, now the Supreme Court has said, no, how would she sue unless there was something done that she can sue over? Go back and redo this. For all we know, the lower court just kicks it out again. But it's entirely possible that they're forced to take it up. The issue with Kari Lake and with anyone involved in this is that every single person in politics, save 5, 10 people. Okay, to be fair, maybe 50. They're cowards. They're all cowards. I feel like DeSantis is a letdown. I feel like he is too weak. Kari Lake is strong. Trump is strong. I like that. There are a decent number of strong people in Congress. Matt Gaetz standing up to Kevin McCarthy was absolutely fantastic. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. Despite the fact Marjorie Taylor Greene was in favor of Kevin McCarthy, she's stood up on a lot of issues. But I look at these court cases and these judges, and everyone's just like, oh man, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be involved. So what I guess I would say is, aside from this story, I feel like a big thing that's being revealed right now is just how cowardly so much of our society and government is, how many individuals are. Probably why people voted for Trump, probably why people like Kari Lake. They want someone who's finally just going to stand up and say, screw off.
By the way, cowardice in politics is not a new phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
And
But I feel like it's more widespread and culturally ingrained at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I maybe I'm just wrong, but I kind of feel like if you go back 100 years, you find most people weren't cowardly, although they were cowards.
Maybe it's more exposed because I think we complain about all the downsides of social media. I think one of the powerful things that happens is that you realize that most politicians are telling you what you want to hear without ever saying anything, and you can dig a little bit deeper now, and you realize that they're empty suits. So when we see someone who appears to be saying what they actually think, and I think Kari Lake is absolutely one of those people, that in and of itself, regardless of what she's saying, is appealing to people because she's actually speaking what she thinks,
and that's
attractive.
And she's not dropping it. I mean, it would have been easy for her to say, like, this is corrupt and terrible, and then quietly fade into the background, right? I mean, she must be spending tons of money on this legal battle, and yet she thinks it's worth it. She's standing by what she said, that she needs to stand up for Arizona's voting integrity, and so she's going to push it for as long as she can. And I think there is something refreshing about that, right? It's very different than someone saying, like, this was stolen from me or this was unfair, and then kind of doing nothing. I think a lot of voters are very sick of the inaction, the fact that they don't follow through with anything.
Yeah. Oh, what were you going to say?
No, it's kind of telling that when you search Kari Lake, you see a host of articles like robots. She mostly loses, I think.
Yep.
That's the phrase. Every article says the same thing. That tells me that she probably accomplished something.
Yep. Because how do you mostly lose? If your goal is to get an argument in, they're like, well, she mostly lost. It's like, is the lawsuit moving forward? Yes. So she didn't lose. Well, she lost a lot of them, but the lawsuit is moving forward. It's like, okay, well, that sounds like her lawsuit's moving forward.
Mostly rejected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AP has Arizona court
so
declines
funny.
most of Lake's appeal over governor's race. And it's like, but they took something. You're trying to frame it as, she's this crazy wacko, but don't worry, she's being subdued. And really, the issues that matter and the ones that could make a difference are being moved forward.
I think a lot of these cowardice in politics comes from people being able to communicate from behind a keyboard and a computer in a locked room. Like, a lot of the stuff people say to each other in social media, they would never say to each other in face-to-face.
I look, man, the DeSantis response to the Trump indictment stuff was like getting a bucket of water splashed in the face. I don't care. A lot of people are like, DeSantis said, I don't know what goes into paying a porn star hush money or whatever. I don't care that he said that. I care about the fact that he said, I'm not getting involved in this, instead of saying F you, instead of just telling these lunatics to screw themselves.
He probably figures Trump's pissed off so many people and he's got no chance at winning. And if he gets involved and gets on his side, he'll just be lumped into that and have no chance at winning. But I mean, He's not wrong that Trump has pissed off way more people than he needed to.
But he could have said, look, it's not about Donald Trump. You don't have to like the guy. I've got my differences with him. He calls me a meatball. But the idea that a 6-year-old misdemeanor would warrant extradition from my state is laughable. So do not even try it. And come on, where the ball's at? I just don't see it.
That's what he should have done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It would take him from being just this suit that's sort of towing the line, trying to pick up both sides, people who are for Trump and people who are against him, and given him a personality, right? Like, he's not willing to take that risk, and that's where you get this fear that he's becoming like a politician.
Yes,
right?
and who is he trying to win over with this, right? The idea is that, well, a lot of people don't like Trump, and he could win the never Trumper Republicans. Dude, all of the parental rights and education stuff that he's done, they're lying about it, saying he's banning books. Mm-hmm. The Lincoln Project is calling him awful and evil. There's nothing to be gained from going the route he's going. It may just be simple. I don't know if he intentionally was trying to avoid being defensive of Trump. The fact is, he does not have it within him to be defensive of hardline principles in that way. So when I see DeSantis, I see a guy who, early on, he's got these policy accomplishments. He's a great governor. I still think that's true. And so you believe that here's a guy who gets it. And now what you see over the past few months is here's a guy who's vanilla pudding, who was given the correct script. He's given the proper playbook. He said, I will execute it because I can understand people like this. But then when it comes time to stand in front of the flames, he goes, oh, too much for me there, buddy.
He doesn't seem like the guy who sent illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard anymore. He seems like someone else.
I don't know.
That's a good point.
I think that's too far. I think it was a tactical mistake, and I think he can
Martha's
recover
Vineyard
from it.
You think the Trump statement stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the issue, though, is like the Martha's Vineyard thing was masterfully done. And that's the kind of stuff you want to see. But I half agree with you. I think there's an opportunity for him to come back and have that strong voice. But I kind of do feel like this was a bit revealing. And it's not so much about can he recover from it, so much so as we've learned a little bit about him.
He did,
but we'll see.
He did a show with Glenn Beck that was pretty enlightening. I don't know if you guys saw that. It's worth watching. I only saw it so far, about 10 minutes of it. In fact, I'm realizing I should watch the entire thing because it was like, oh, I see the humanity in this guy now. He's a tactical guy. He's like a JAG. He was a Navy lawyer, JAG guy, and he knows when to speak, when not to speak, when to let your enemy. If your enemy's making a mistake, don't stop him. That's probably what he's thinking with Trump right now. He's like, dude, this guy's foot in his mouth. He deserves this. He paid off a prostitute that he had sex with while he was married and running for president. Like, let him burn. Let him deal with it. I'm not getting involved in this crap. He wants to win the presidency. I
Look,
think.
man, if DeSantis is the nominee, he's got my vote. I like the guy. I think he's doing really well. I think he's a great governor. I think he'll be a great leader, and I think he's substantially better than anything anyone else has to offer. But I understand why people like Trump, because Trump, this is the thing why I said before that DeSantis might be a good VP, is because DeSantis has what Trump doesn't. Trump has what DeSantis doesn't. Trump has that like boastful arrogance about him. He is that guy who's going to be like, don't you try it. Don't come at me. It's not happening. And DeSantis is the guy who's going to be like, here's what the people actually want. Here's me telling off the lockdowns and actually like solving these problems properly. Trump's got the attitude, but DeSantis has the plan.
Yeah,
so I can respect that.
I think it's tough to say what would have happened, should it, whatever. But I think if DeSantis had been president when COVID struck, that he wouldn't have let Fauci run the show. He would have run the show.
I don't know, man.
He doesn't. I mean, he's like he knows how to use the system. He used his state of emergency in Florida and he held it open so that he could reposition funds to make sure that schools couldn't close down. So it was like, yeah, he knew that this COVID crap was an emergency and it was making kids get masked when they were 2 and 3. So he's like, no, the emergency is that kids are getting masked up at 4 years old. I'm not going to let that happen to kids.
Well, that's an interesting question. When it comes to actual policy, is Trump the kind of guy who's going to drop the hammer, or is DeSantis? DeSantis is the guy who sent a bunch of migrants to Martha's Vineyard as a powerful statement. Trump's the guy who refused to fire Fauci because he was scared of political backlash. So it's tough,
I
man.
like the Navy lawyer. I like the experience. I like having a lawyer in presidency. Obama was a lawyer, for better or worse. He knew how to game the system,
There'd be
man.
tons of lawyers
Yeah,
for president.
I mean, the conversation with Glenn Beck and DeSantis, I did watch it, and that's where DeSantis wants to be, but he's struggling with, how does he engage Trump? Because he watched everybody get chewed up and spit out. When you take on Trump, playing on Trump's turf, Trump's going to kill you. So he's this episode that we're talking about. DeSantis is like, do I engage? Do I disengage? What do I do with this? Because I know what happens to everybody that goes toe-to-toe with Trump in terms of a pissing match.
He says that on the show? He talks about that?
No. I'm putting words in his mouth. He's never going to say that out loud.
I would love
But
to hear
that's kind of what I'm saying is, if it's not going to be Trump, it's got to be someone who can easily go toe-to-toe with Trump. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be hard to... Look, Donald Trump gets on stage and he calls you names, and then you look at how the rest of the GOP handled it in 2016, and it was hilarious. They could not handle. They didn't know what to do. It's funny. I'm like, you need somebody who can actually stand toe-to-toe with Trump and fire back in the same way. I don't know who could possibly do it.
To be fair, the Democrats don't have one either.
Oh,
I
no.
mean, there's no one politically in America. I mean, unless the Libertarians are fielding someone I don't know about, there's no one who could take on Trump.
It's coming.
Okay,
It's
There's
coming.
also a question of, is Trump still 2016 Trump?
Yeah.
We're starting to see a little bit of it, but a lot of people, his core fan base, said they were let down by his announcement speech. Does he have the same level of energy? Has he been toned down? Is he going to be that fireball? Should he be? Some people have argued he's got to approach this differently as a former president, because before, I think, who said it? Was it Dave Chappelle? He was like, first he was saying like, hey, look, man, I know what they're doing because I used to do it. Let me in there. Then he gets in there and does the same thing.
Yeah.
He came out of the house
Right.
and said, they're cheating you. And then he went back into the house.
So the question is, should he run as the outsider again, considering the fact he was president for 4 years?
No.
Or does he now need to be the let me finish the job president and act differently?
Yeah,
I'm not going to pretend.
Patrick Bet David made that observation also. I think you're right. I don't think that the old tactic of like I'm the outsider isn't where he's not the outsider. He's the front runner. So he needs to play like I'm already the winner. And when I win again, this is how I'm going to change the world. Unless I see a mission and a meaning to it, I have no interest in like playing party politics or identity. And all that crap.
Not to be one note Johnny. I still think that the lockdowns and his relentless advocacy for vaccines as the thing that he did, I think that's his Achilles heel. And I think as this goes on and all of the economic damage and all of the damage caused particularly to young people by vaccines becomes more apparent, Trump owns that. He proudly owns it, and I don't know what he does about that the older it festers.
You wouldn't have any advice for him? Like if you were on his campaign, you wouldn't know how to spin that message? Or there's nothing he could do to sort of counterbalance that?
He still brags about how he personally made the vaccine happen. Mm-hmm. That's not a good idea. I don't think so.
But he thinks it's a good idea.
I feel like someone
if he did it, it's a good idea. That's...
Everything he does is a good idea.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be like, I was wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
So fair points. Not firing Fauci, supporting the lockdowns. He's the guy who did the 15 days to slow the spread. That was on him. So, and DeSantis isn't that guy. So that's why I'm saying like Trump has the attitude, but then there's a question of, is he going to step up this time, see what he did wrong and fix it? Or should we just be like, look, we got a real opportunity with DeSantis.
We got an opportunity. DeSantis defied federal mandate, like the largest, strongest government in world history. He said no, and he did his thing the way he wanted it done as a governor, which is his just right. And I think he would do the same thing as president against ESG. I don't think he would let the international banking cartel own the United States.
But is it worth having 4 more years of Trump? Because if Trump doesn't get elected this year, I mean, he is older. Like, it's unlikely that he'll seek the presidency. I mean, maybe he will. I don't know. I can't.
Ooh,
he does
it's a
have
tough
stamina.
one, huh?
But then you could have 4 years of Trump and then theoretically 8 years of DeSantis. Or you could start DeSantis' presidential term now and never have Trump again.
I don't think we have time to waste. I think it's the best now or we all die kind of situation.
And for you, the best
I
seems like
agree.
DeSantis?
Yeah, far superior to Trump if I had to pick between the two. I think Vivek Ramaswamy's far superior to all of them.
Okay.
I agree with that, but I don't see him winning.
I want to support him so he does. If we have that kind of influence, let's make it happen.
This is the crazy thing. Like, most people will identify various people as probably more capable or better for a variety of reasons, but just not capable of winning. And that's the reality. So I don't know if that's not the same thing as lesser of two evils. I think Trump is a good option. I genuinely do. I think Vivek probably better for a lot of reasons. But maybe, we have to ask ourselves, what is it we actually want from the president? What do we want the president to do? Do we want someone to set policy? Is that it? Then Ron DeSantis will go in and he'll be like, here's my agenda. But does that guarantee the agenda is going to happen? Well, it's more of a congressional thing. Do we want power, arrogance, strongman? That's Trump. Trump's going to push people around. But if he's got bad policy and he's got bad people because personnel is policy, it's not going to be a good thing, is it?
I want a diplomat, but I don't want someone that gets walked over.
I just, you know what it is for me that always makes me default back to Trump is the foreign policy stuff. Like the foreign policy that he was engaged in is the best foreign policy I've ever seen from any president in my life.
Domestic policy was horrid.
Like what?
It just divided the country. He would tweet about far leftists. Like, what? You're supposed to unify the country, bro. You'll bring them together. If you don't like the way they're behaving, give them something to live for.
I don't know if I care about the tweets.
And the tweets, God.
Or just to put it out there, or we could vote for Dave Smith and we could finally put Barack Obama in jail for crimes in Yemen.
Vivek has that Dave Smith quality. They're talking about breaking up like the Department of Education and breaking up the FBI. I mean, they're talking about similar things like scaling down the government.
Yeah, he's got a pretty bold message. I have a naive question. Is he running as a Republican?
Vivek?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Dave Smith going to campaign on lock him up? Lock him up. Lock him up.
I think after this episode, yes, 100%.
I mean,
Dave's listening, taking notes.
It's a scary thought to arrest a former president. But there's a challenge of a legitimate question. Do we ignore the actual crimes committed in our name? Because I'm offended by it.
Yeah.
And just like arrest them all.
I do. I'm sort of joking about a sitting president arresting former presidents. That feels a little bit banana republic to me. I'd love that there was a more objective standard of justice. But our point stands. These guys committed crimes, and we shouldn't just sweep it under the rug.
I want to clarify, too, about Trump when I said his horrible domestic policy, the tweets, the division, but also the COVID stuff, man. That just like hands off, let the dog bite kind of thing with Fauci, just let him go nuts. Was
It's hard,
and,
though, 'cause-
and
Oh, God,
he didn't
it was-
deploy military to stop riots.
Anything.
Yeah.
He let people
The
riot and
riots
burn
thing
buildings.
is crazy. I mean, if you think about that summer of 2020 and everything that happened, like all of the businesses that were already suffering under the COVID mandates that then suffered even more, and he didn't intervene, it's hard not to forget that final year of his presidency was really rough for him. I think he did do a lot of great in the first three, but is that enough to balance out the final year?
I'm also kind of just like, I want to see Trump finish off what he wants to do. I want to see him just have a crack at it. I don't know if that's meaningless, like, 'cause there's nothing really behind the idea, but there's like an emotional part of me that's like, we just gotta get, Trump's got to go in and then finish what he started, whatever that was supposed to be.
What is it? What does he think he
I mean, the
wants?
foreign policy stuff was huge. That to me is a massive component. Shoring up our borders. First thing he does is get rid of the TPP. He wants to bring jobs back to America. He wants to get rid of the car stuff. He wants to secure our borders, better working class jobs, better manufacturing, getting NATO and our allies to pay their fair share, getting our troops out of these foreign countries. All of that stuff sounds like the right track. The economy was booming. There are a lot of questions about spending. There's a lot of issues with foreign policy. I get all that. But I'm like, I don't know what I get with DeSantis. I see Florida. I have a general idea. With Trump, it's like, kind of want to see him just wrap that one up with a nice little bow.
What do you guys think about bringing back extremely dirty industry to the United States?
Totally in favor of it. We need to be developing in Alaska. Modern technology can address those concerns. If we build a factory 70 years ago and we've been updating it a little bit, well, it's no surprise it pollutes. If we build a modern version of that factory from the ground up, we're going to mitigate a lot of those issues. So an interesting thing happens with with industrialization. The United States cellular data sucks because we're the first to roll it out. We roll out, what was it, the IDEN network might have been the first one, and it's like garbage. Foreign country like Ukraine doesn't get cell phones at all. Then we invent better technologies. We end up with CDMA. Ukraine begins to install CDMA, but instead of getting generation 1 tech like we built, they build third generation tech. So I go in the United States, this is way back, this is 10 years ago. I'm using CDMA cell phones and getting like 0.1, 0.2 megabits. I go to Ukraine, same cell phone, 2 megabits. Well, how is that possible? Because they have a modernized version of that new tech that was built. If we're going to bring back these industries to the United States by easing on environmental regulations, yes, there's a risk of pollution. However, we can set new leases for developing in areas like Alaska, which I believe is being tremendously wasted. I'm sure a lot of Alaskans would love to have the development to improve their lives. And when we build these factories, when we build these developments, we can build them with modern versions of the technology, which mitigates for a lot of the pollution and helps, facilitate it away.
Yeah, we could rebuild the railroads with graphene instead of iron or whatever steel, that warping, bending metal, something that's stronger, because a lot of the problem with industrialization is the transportation of the
high-speed
materials.
rail.
Which we don't maglevs, where they're not even on the metal, they're gliding over the metal
No
because
friction.
it's super cooled superconductor. Yeah,
No friction. So
there's a new
that's
material
exactly
called
right.
red matter that can be used for that. It's a extremely awesome superconductor they just invented.
I agree. I think the issue with maglev is they have to be in cities with high power. Whereas if we're going across countryside, you just want a car or something. But yeah, we can build better, faster trains, and we can build better infrastructure and build all of these things. The reason that Donald Trump wanted to ease environmental regulations was to bring companies back from China. What happens is, and it's very obvious, the United States imposes environmental regulations, increasing the cost for a business to operate. They then increase the taxes on that business. They then cut tariffs. And so the company says, it's going to cost me 20% in taxes and 20% more in environmental regulations I have to offset. Or I can send my factory to China and ship the product here for free with no regulations, no taxes, That's exactly what they do. So when the Democrats got in, people are wondering, like, what did Joe Biden do that was so bad for the economy? Well, increased environmental regulations, increased corporate taxes, and decreased tariffs, resulting in companies fleeing the country and shipping the products back, stripping jobs away from Americans and extracting the value from our economy and destroying the country. We're watching it happen.
Yeah, it also takes our supply chain and gives part of it to the Chinese, which is a very, very high vulnerability for the supply chain.
Yeah, I'd take it a step further and say just raising the cost of producing energy in no way produces cleaner energy. And there's all sorts of trade-offs. If Thomas Massey was here, he'd point out all of the quote-unquote dirty industry that's involved with making clean energy. And then there's the whole question of World War III. Maybe we should actually produce more oil and gas in this country, and maybe our allies should as well, so that we don't end in a nuclear winter, because that's dirty too.
Have you ever played Civilization? It's a
No.
great game, geopolitics. If you have a huge trade network with your neighboring country, you've got 8 trade routes, you're getting your iron from them, you're getting your horses from them, you've got most of your income from them. If they go to war with you, it all goes to zero.
Mm-hmm.
You have nothing. And then they do, because you've been getting it from them. Now they have all.
No, continue.
See, that's it. It's
But
the
we need-
worst situation when your trade partner goes to war with you. It's
Kids in schools should be forced to play this game. I say forced, like it should be an assigned thing. And the kids would love it because
It's an educational tool, yeah.
But anybody who's ever played
Tell
Civilization...
Ron DeSantis, he'll do that.
I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
So here's an example. In one of my playthroughs of Civilization, I had this very powerful and big nation. And then when we got to the discovery of uranium, my country had no uranium at all. There was none in my territory. And so I had this massive expansion and growth. Then when we got to this technological level, all of a sudden, the underdeveloped neighboring country that stole my technology with spies had tons of uranium and started building nukes. And I'm like, damn. They have it within their borders. What do I do? We're going to go to war, and they've got this stuff. So what do you do? Well, I mean, hope you don't go to war, and then you do, and then you're fighting, and they have uranium, and you can't. So you can't build these weapons. They can. You got to go seize that city that's got access to it, so you can build them, and they can't. It's an amazing video game. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it really it puts the utilitarian aspect of war into clear view. Like, if your opponent has a weapon that will destroy you, you have to take that away from them. I mean, otherwise they will win. And it's a game of winning and losing. Real life isn't winning and losing. It's about living together. So it's not about...
Is it like Risk with more factors
Yeah,
involved?
it's not all about fighting. You can win culturally. You can win religiously, diplomatically. There's different
You
ways
can
to
take over-
unite the planet and win. Scientifically, you can launch a spacecraft first
Okay.
to Alpha Centauri.
You can take over cities through culture.
Yeah.
So you can actually have your cities produce music, movies, social media. And then what happens is that culture expands your borders and influence. And if it starts pressing upon another city with too much force, eventually that city will request to join you. And then it makes the other country really angry, and then they can threaten war against you. And you're like, hey, look, they came to us.
It's kind of like talking about the culture war. That's the culture war. You flip cities. Like in France right now, there's these riots and explosions and burning, and then the cops are on the side of the people. Like, that's the culture flip. So that can happen with literally cities as well.
Well, that
But
just happened. The cops joined the protesters.
yeah, there's a bunch of cops walking with the protesters. The culture wars.
I saw a picture of Macron with he's like face palming because it's been going on for months now or something like that. Brutal,
Yeah.
widespread riots across France.
I mean, he survived the no confidence vote, but the people do not like it, right? Like, the legislature allowed his government to stay in place, but he has really upset the people of France with his retirement plan issues. I mean, I think this game sounds really fascinating, and I don't think I've ever played it before, but I do think that when we talk about TikTok and we talk about kind of the American acceptance of what's going on with Ukraine or our involvement in it, a lot of that has to do with long-form cultural warfare that's been going on for a long time. I think America thinks of itself as the leading exporter of culture in the world, and that's just not true at this point, and I think largely that is because of the internet. Like, other countries can take some of our culture but also maintain their own, right? So we saw this. There were a couple times that, there are movies that China is rejecting that typically they'd let in, or they are seeing their own original content outperform imported American movies, and that's because they are prioritizing their own culture. I think the way that we saw people sort of readily adopt the Ukraine flag out of this understanding that, like, we should be helping them is sort of this idea that we are the global citizens, this cultural war that we have put on our own people. I don't know how you feel about this.
No, I'm not a culture warrior, but I think that culture is everything. And so I tend to be sort of blue sky optimistic about letting people free to figure this stuff out. And so I worry less about the fact that China's manipulating us or that Russia's manipulating us, and that free people have a natural ability to figure stuff out.
Do you think that American, like the youth in America, is truly free? And I only ask in the context of, the algorithm on TikTok. We hear about it all the time, and I sound vaguely afraid of technology, but there is the idea that the youth in America are being fed content that is meant to psychologically disrupt them, right? To encourage anxiety, to push other kind of negative experiences and emotions, so therefore they are completely consumed by basically collapsing in on themselves, while Chinese teens are being encouraged to pursue STEM and other things. Like, are you truly free if you have this technological disruptor coming through?
Well, you're still free, but like the phenomenon of like a herd mentality and most people just sort of following the leader is not a new thing, and it's not caused by technology. And most of cultural change and most of cultural development comes from those cultural entrepreneurs that speak up and say, you know what, let's do it a different way. So I still have confidence in those young people that are thinking, because that's what defines culture. It's not just the mindless mob that shuffles forward like zombies, because that's always been there, and social media absolutely amplifies that tendency. But someone's going to step out and say, guys, over here, this is what we need to really care about. And I think that's how the wisdom of crowds works. Most of the crowd does not practice wisdom, but somebody says, guys, we're going in the wrong direction, we got to go this way. And it always just works out.
Let's jump to this cultural story. This is an interesting one. We have this tweet. I saw this image from Icons Women. Hannah Ahrensman says, I have decided to end my cycling career. At my last race at the recent UCI Cyclocross National Championships in the elite women's category, I came in 4th place, flanked on either side by male riders, awarded 3rd and 5th places. My sister and family sobbed as they watched a man finish in front of me, having witnessed several physical interactions with him throughout the race. So this is the photo is the woman crying as she's quitting because she was denied the podium by a male athlete. There's another story where another male has won, I think, like 15 races.
Yeah.
Like 15 to 15 or some ridiculous
Just
number.
won one in New York, right?
Yeah, just won one in New York. And I feel bad for this woman, but I think she's doing the right thing in quitting. And I think all of these women need to quit and maybe make a new league, maybe make the female division or something.
It's a great example of the leader that steps out of the herd and says, this is insane, we need to stop doing this. And she's going to pay an insane price. She's giving up her dream and her career to do that. But I think the tide is turning. I think the insanity, people are starting to say, what are we doing here?
Well, we have a story here from Timcast.com. World Athletics Council bans biological male athletes from competing against females. Officials say the policy update is to protect the integrity of female athletics. So it's starting to happen. That's big, huh?
Yeah. I mean, especially this issue. I ran track in high school, so it's a sport I care a lot about, but there was a group of track athletes in Connecticut that were some of the first to file a lawsuit and say, you can't let biologically male athletes compete with us because it does take away our right to compete in a sport. Like, you are flying in the face of something that theoretically feminism fought for. And
those two males were not undergoing hormone therapy or anything like that. They were just males who were like, I want to compete against the females because I'm a woman. And they said, fine. Mm-hmm. And they kept winning every race and breaking records.
Yeah, and it's especially like on the high school level, it means that you don't show up on the rosters that college coaches get, so you miss out on scholarship opportunities. Like, if you are an elite athlete competing at that level, you can't expect a coach to look at the list and say, oh, well, these names all appear female to me, so why would I question this, right? And especially if we're supposed to treat biological men who identify as women the same way, then you are literally giving away spots on teams and educational dollars to them when these girls have trained for so long to get to that place. It seems like, to me, it seems like common sense, but I understand our culture has created a different narrative around this.
Well, I feel like, what Matt was saying, the insanity is starting to be pushed back against. I think we're starting to win on this front. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the United States can finally get its act together. There was a couple big moments. One was when Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks agreed with Bernie Sanders saying, we want equality of opportunity, not outcome. That's like, okay, welcome back to the mix. And then we have, I think I have the tweet right here. Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks tweeted, I'm a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, birthing person, or person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community without doing this ish. And of course, she got ripped to shreds. The left went after her and started screaming at her and insulting her. They're calling them the Young Turfs now instead of the Young Turks. But I'm like, well, you know what? If the Young Turks are pushing back on the insanity gradually, I'll accept it. I will take it. And maybe we're going to start winning more ground in the culture war. That's a good thing.
Man, and talk about, this is another one I think that there's really no winning or losing. It's about, can we coexist? The victory is, can we all win? And when you see, Anna went on Ben Shapiro's show a month ago. I didn't know that. And they had a great conversation. It's fascinating to talk about Medicare for all. I mean, it's legit. And then I just saw Sam Cedar went on Valuetainment. So it's like people that you would consider from the left and the right are coming together to talk. I think a lot of it's because of this banking fiasco, the economy hitting its breaking point. People are like, what choice do I have at this point?
I think there have probably always been people who say, like, hey, this is something that we should not pursue. So because it's Women's History Month, I've been writing about anti-feminists, and this week I published a profile of Camille Paglia, which I'm definitely pronouncing her name wrong, but she is an academic at University of Arts in Philadelphia, and she gets this reputation of being, you're nodding your head, of being the anti-feminist feminist. She said, I was a feminist in the 1960s, and we fought for our rights to be free. We fought so that we wouldn't have to have curfews in college dorms. We could risk the right to be raped and attacked on campus because we wanted the right to take care of ourselves and not be in the protection of men or whatever else. And one of the things that she has gotten in trouble for in more recent years is saying, you guys should pay attention to biology. You guys seem really interested in science, except for when it applies to this issue. And she says, you can't, your biology says you can't just suddenly decide you're a different gender. And this has ousted her from the feminist community. I mean, she still identifies as a feminist, but feminists don't want her there, even though she's one of the most noted academics in this ideology. It's crazy.
She's the most legit feminist out there. And my wife and I have this fantastic argument, and I always lose arguments with my wife, but I consider myself a radical feminist, and I see the comments are going to freak out here. My wife considers herself an anti-feminist because we both believe in really strong women that have the right to determine their own destiny. Mm-hmm. And that's what feminism used to be about. And, my childhood intellectual hero was a woman, Ayn Rand. She turned me on to a lot of these ideas. And she was a badass who fled the Soviet Union after her father's business was stolen when she was still a teenager. And she ended up in Hollywood as a scriptwriter. That's badass. And that's my sort of heroic view of what women can be. In modern feminism and all of this stuff we're talking about, it is so anti-feminist in every single way. And back to Anna for just a second, that's a heroic stand that she's taking, because she's taking on her own audience. Her own woke audience is trying to destroy her. And it's one thing for us to criticize it. My audience isn't going to get mad at me if I criticize wokeism, but she's got to deal with that.
Yeah, they're going to lose a lot of money for doing so.
That's a hero.
The Young Turks probably lost a lot of money by them coming out and saying this.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good thing. And I hope they lose more. Not because I want them to suffer or because I'm trying to be mean, but because they need to free themselves from the shackle of this cult. Mm. And if they no longer have any incentive to try and please these people, and it seems like they're already shaking that off, maybe they'll stop pushing a lot of that garbage.
Yeah.
So good for them.
I mean, what are the odds that she wants to jump ship anyways, right? Like, if she's going to take this stance, she must know that
Cenk's
she puts herself... Her. He is? Okay.
Yeah, outright defending her and saying she's never going to apologize for this.
Straight out, yeah.
And he agrees with her. So I do think the main issue with the Young Turks is that they're duplicitous. I can respect her making the statement, but they make fake videos about me and other people all the time. So it's not like I expect them to ever be good people or anything like that. But I'll give them credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
We need to make these gains in the culture war and take what we can get when we can get it. So, I don't know. I thought the Young Turfs was really funny.
It is funny.
That is funny.
I like your...
It's less offensive than the Young Turks. Like they named their organization after the Armenian genocide.
It's crazy.
Enver Pasha.
I like your take about being an extreme feminist. I always say that my dad is the biggest feminist I know. He's constantly telling me I can do things and that I'm capable. I don't like it. It's the worst. No, but I'm being serious. I feel like there are so many conservative men that I know who are advocates for, strong, capable women, and they believe that women are completely capable. It's the victim mentality that has crept into this modern iteration of feminism that I just can't get behind. I don't understand why it would be appealing to anyone.
I also just hate giving up words that are packed with meaning and value, and we always find ourselves like attacking the word justice or attacking the word democracy or attacking the word community because it's been co-opted to mean something that it doesn't mean. And I think we should be feminists because we're pro-women.
Yeah,
and just define what you mean, and don't let the bastards steal our language from us.
We're in the fourth wave of feminism, the word, but the word has different meanings in every wave.
Yeah.
The second wave of feminism is the one you're talking about. That's the one I was raised with. My mom, I was like, as a very young kid, I asked my mom, does feminism mean that women are better than men? She said, no, feminism means that men and women are equal. And that was all I needed. After it changed my life, I just was like, oh, okay, I get it.
So right now,
It didn't make sense, but I got it.
if you ask a trans activist, they will use the phrase cis woman. But they want you, they say trans women are women, so just say woman. Cis women, however, are cis women. You see what they're doing?
Yeah.
They are taking the normative term woman, applying it to themselves, and then making cis women the outlier, the other.
The reality is, if you're a man and you want to transition to a woman, you can be a trans woman and you're still a man. You never stop being a human. You're still a human. Like, you don't end one to become the other. You become both. So it's very important to realize that women are women, and they can also be trans men and women at the same time.
Well, trans woman is a subcategory of male.
Exactly. So you're a man and a trans woman, or you can be a woman and a trans man, but you don't like lose one when you try and like transit. You're still the same. You're still a human. You never stop being a man. You never stop being a human. You're still, even if you identify as a shoe, you're still a human.
But this is like where the concept of dead naming comes in, right? Like if someone says, now that I have accepted this identity and I believe I'm supposed to be like this, you should never refer to me and even reference, I don't want to see pictures of this person I was before. I mean, they do feel as though they can completely leave behind, this part of themselves. And
They can do whatever they want, and I'll do whatever I want.
But the whole, like, this is who I was before, like, it's still now. You're still you. You are different, and you're still you. Like, it doesn't, it's, I don't know. Like, it's not like you're no longer what you were. You're still that and more now. So
But Tim's point is like, we're not giving up the word woman. That's our word. We know what that means.
That's our word. You can't say it?
Yeah.
Well, no, like cis, het, cis, they're slurs. If they're going to make the argument that trans women are women, then I'll make the same argument and say that you can't say cis woman. That's derogatory in the same way you claim it is, so your own logic negates your right to do so. That being said, I mean, like, trans woman, it defines something. It is a biological male who identifies as female. There you go, end of story. You can't then say you are a woman. Well, you're a trans woman. There's a qualifier for that because you are different from woman.
yeah, you can't be a trans woman if you're a woman. You
Right.
have to be a man to be a trans woman.
Yes. Yeah. And you have to be a woman to be a trans man. So they're playing with definitions, I think, for legal reasons. Because if they can get the culture to start arguing that woman includes males, it changes civil rights law.
And then you see these like guys beating women in races and things like. I understand. I don't want to project that future because it looks like people are waking up and kind of acknowledging how dirty it is for a guy to be like, I feel like a woman and I'm going to take your trophy, lady. Like, what the fucking hell kind of world is that?
People get really annoyed about it when it's when you have college athletes who are like not that particularly good, and then they come back and they said, actually, I identify as female, and so they outperform everyone else. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. I think part of it is because they're basically saying, I realize that I could probably beat you guys, and I don't want to downplay whatever psychological elements that come into this kind of decision making, but it does seem crazy that you would just say like, I think I deserve this, and I will continue to compete as if I am just as entitled to this position as you are, when really I'm competing with advantages that you could never have.
I'm very grateful that this girl came out and made that statement. What was her name again? Did you have that?
Hannah Ahrensman.
I'd love to have her on the show sometime. Taylor Silverman spoke out about this a long time ago, and it really improved her standing and career, as far as I can tell. She seems really happy about it and was really scared about speaking up about it, but she wasn't happy. The people...
Yeah,
the
she works here.
Yeah, she works with Timcast now.
We've been trying to put a skate show together for a long time, but we need the new facility to be built, and it got delayed for so long that we were planning on having the show started like 7 months ago. But now the building's nearing completion, so we may actually get that ball rolling. And then we have some other pro skateboarders in mind who are going to co-host the show. But I'm just like, we've got to provide support to people who are doing the right thing, standing up. And Taylor's good people. She's super nice, super chill, and just said, hey, it's not okay that, like, I would have got first place and made more money, but now it's being taken away from me. So we did this thing where I wrote her a check. We did like a big fake check saying, like, here's the difference. Here's what you would have won, and we paid that. And then offered her a job and said, why don't you host the skate show once we get it going? And then we'll get it going. I think one of the most important, there's several things that we need to do if we're going to win a culture war. One is make culture. That's why we've been working on these projects. We have a video game in development. We've got the coffee shop in development. The new facility is going to include a bunch of new shows, a morning show with a bunch of ladies. We're going to do the skate show. We're going to do Poker with the Boys. Poker with the Boys I am most excited about. That's going to be the best show ever. Because during the members only show the other night, when we had Troy Nails on, Congressman, someone suggested, like, members of Congress need to do these things like AOC did with playing Among Us on Twitch and getting all these viewers. Why don't you do that? Well, I don't think it makes sense for, like, a late 50s or 50s-ish, member of Congress guy to be like playing a video game with some kids. But you get a Matt Gaetz, a Troy Nails, and like a Lauren Boebert playing a game of poker with a bunch of people, and they're talking smack, and that's the kind of thing that's personable and relatable and culture building.
Yeah.
So that's another big component. The other thing is giving money to people who are doing good things, right? James O'Keefe does this. When a whistleblower would come out, he'd be like, we're going to give you a job. We're going to make sure that you do not get punished for being a whistleblower. And I'm thinking the same thing. Taylor Silverman did the right thing. We want to do a skate show. We need a host. Perfect opportunity for a good person who has good principles and the courage to speak up to be given an opportunity. So let's make sure the people who are speaking up don't have that fear where it's like, this woman, Hannah Ahrensman, she's ending her career, her cycling career. Yeah. What does that mean for her income? What does it mean for her future? There needs to be something for her now. So we need to figure out how to do that. How can we make sure that there are resources available to people who want to stand up and do the right thing? They do not get left destitute.
I mean, especially in this case, I feel like she is officially ending her career, but her career is also being ended for her, right? If you're a competitive athlete like this, I mean, there must be a prize associated with each level. So if you can't place first, second, or third, then you are missing the potentially large payout that you need to fund the training and everything else that goes into this career.
And the sponsorships that go
and
with
the sponsorships go with it. I mean,
three.
I can't imagine that these brands are like, oh, I'll sponsor number 4, the one who consistently comes in fourth. But it's sort of, a rigged game. She's being forced out of this income that she's built for herself, which, of course, as an athlete, there's a clock on that anyways. You can't necessarily compete forever. It's just sad that this is happening.
Why don't we just have transgender divisions? Why is it that there was the Isaac Hennig, who was biologically female, competing against women, and then transfers to the men's team and says, now I'm not winning as much? Oh, so you acknowledge this. There's this lie among the left where they're like, there's no advantage to being male in sports. Then where are the females competing against males? Mm-hmm. There's like 2. And they both acknowledge they don't do as well. Duh. Why is it only ever males competing against females? Because anybody who's sane understands this. And the problem I see with this, if I'm going to go into a committee hearing and be like, as a member of this committee, I cast my vote to say, obviously males will have physical advantages over females. And then the other guy sitting across from him goes, no, they don't. I vote against you. And I'm like, okay, this is not democracy. This makes no sense. Democracy does not work. We cannot function this way. If you have 2 people, one's insane and one's sane, you get nothing. Well, we don't want a mixture of sane and insane. We want sane. We want a sane system, but we have insane people voting for insane things for insane reasons.
So you build a republic and you hope to God that people vote insane people. I guess if you get enough insane people, maybe they'll vote in an insane person.
And they are.
Somehow, but most of the people in Congress are way more sane than a lot of the crazy stuff I'm seeing on the internet. I don't see like crazy, I don't want to start blaming.
I just want to see what happens with Gen Z, right? Like I am so fascinated because theoretically they are marginally more conservative than generations before them, but also 15%, 1 in 6, identify as LGBTQ, I guess. So they're kind of divided among themselves. It seems like they are drifting in tons of directions. Although I feel like we talk about this a little bit, like there are things that I think our generation feels differently about. Like there are a lot of millennials who feel more socially liberal. They take a fiscal conservative approach. Like they are not as rigid in their political stances as generations before them. I think Gen Z is going to be hard to predict in that sense, because we feel like someone will stand, like you were saying before, someone will come to the surface and say like, hey, let's not do this anymore. But I feel like there are enough components of that generation that believe really, really intensely in the dogma of what they're being taught.
Young people are always up for grabs. They're always trying to figure out who they are and where they belong. And it's not everybody's going to take the lead in figuring it out. And it's going to be someone that they respect from their generation that steps out, and maybe they quit cycling because of something insane, and that becomes a defining moment in their sort of figuring out where they belong. And I just have a lot of confidence in people, and I think
I love it. I love the positivity.
I don't think we're all crazy. We're not the people you see on Twitter. It's going to be okay. You have a much too high opinion about members of Congress, I must say. You got to rein that in.
Maybe. I'm learning to love them because I've been spending time with them and hanging out.
Be careful. It's
but
intoxicating.
he's talking about like 2 members of Congress, like Matt Gaetz.
I keep talking about Matt. I love you, Matt. I
Matt's
understand.
great.
It's kind of like a club. Like you wanna. I don't like alliances. I don't like cliques. And like I feel like maybe when you get into Congress, first of all, it's way too big. It's not working right. It was made for like 80 people to be our representatives. There's 430 and they don't even know each other. It's disturbing. Like you walk around the halls of Congress, I won't see 95% of the people or their offices because they're all over everywhere. I never saw them hanging out. It's like a big deal to get 5 Republicans together. So that's a big problem with Congress, is it is way too big. They need to know each other and work together.
The other problem is congressional districts keep getting denser and denser. So what is it, 775,000 people for one rep? Good luck getting represented.
Yeah, we need a severe overhaul of the way we govern. I don't want to like rip the government apart, but it needs to change. We need to adapt.
There is one alternative. I mean, maybe the answer is there needs to be less people, and we can maybe implement programs to encourage women not to have children. And
sickeningly, that would do it.
Making me nervous over there.
That would be one way to get there, I think. But
Bill Gates, huh?
I think if people could represent themselves a little easier, because the whole purpose of sending a representative was so that they could represent you more effectively than you could represent yourself. But now with the internet, you have an opportunity to throw up an internet video, and that's full representation of who I am.
Wouldn't that be a step? Wouldn't a step in that direction just be returning more power to the states, right? Because then you're being represented on a smaller level. I mean, right now, Tim is totally right. Like, for each member of Congress, really, there's a huge number of people they're representing in the U.S. If you were to give them equal representation on a federal level, you'd make Congress even bigger.
I think it'd be like 8,000 people.
It would be insane. It would be ridiculous. They could never get anything done.
Or, hear me out, crazy talk. What if we let people make more decisions for themselves?
Interesting.
Is that insane?
But yes. How would that work, right? So when we have woke people who are like filibustering this woman in Nebraska, demanding the legal right to castrate children. It's like, okay, how far do we want to go with this? And how far does her decision-making powers go in this country? Are we talking about she can only affect her local jurisdiction? Then the question is, if I live in West Virginia and I hear that in Ohio, but to the hundreds, to the thousands, they're giving young girls mastectomies and sterilizing them, do we just go, well, I don't know, that's Ohio, we're not going to get involved in that? Or do we say, like, hey, we got to stop that?
So that, I always lean towards making sure that parents have more rights. And when I see school districts, which are government entities, when I see state politics or local politics intervene in that relationship, where a lot of this stuff is coming from, I think that's the cancer that needs to be wiped out. And I think parents have to have that responsibility. I'm not saying that parents will get it right every time. Last night's show proved that. But I trust parents more than politicians, and I absolutely trust parents more than these interest groups that are feeding off of this system. There's huge financial benefits to all of these therapies and drugs and treatments. That's all intertwined with government. And if we're going to unwind that, we have to shift power back to parents, power back to people, power back to communities to judge parents who aren't doing a good job.
Who gets to define what a good job is, right? So the challenge is there's two arguments. The left argument is not cutting off the child's testicles is genocide. That's what this woman said outright. She said it is genocide. They genuinely believe, or at least they presume to believe, that they're saving children's lives. Well, by that argument, they're preventing a genocide. You're going to have a community of people be like, we're all here in agreement, preventing genocide is bad, therefore we're going to sterilize a bunch of kids.
I mean, I think that view is insane, and I think that parents would reject it.
But we're watching in California the embracing of it en masse. They're codifying it in law. In, I think, Washington, a child can get...
They're codifying. That's my point.
But in Washington, I think it's Washington, a child can get gender-affirming surgery and medical intervention without parental consent. They can go to a doctor and just get it done.
By law.
By law.
What if you gave... first of all, that is the opposite of what I'm talking about. What if you gave parents the rights to... it shouldn't even be a right. Like, parents are the governing body of their children.
Did you see the video of Jazz Jennings we talked about the other day?
Yeah, I listened to less.
What about parents like that? Do we give them the right?
I think you have to err on the side of even like not in that specific case. I think you should intervene because that's violence against a person.
That would require state powers determining morality to intervene and stop parents who are doing things we deem bad.
Or community community standards still protect life and property. This is where, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.
But their argument is they're not. See, the challenge is the system we have now is supposed to have a federal government which protects rights. And if we have a shared and cohesive morality, you do not allow a parent to do to Jazz what that woman is doing to that poor human being. For those who are not familiar with the story, it's a viral clip of Jazz Jennings' mother saying she wakes Jazz up in the middle of the night, grabs a dilator, lubricates it, and says, "Stick this in or I will." I mean, that's the most it's horrifying. And then she even says, if she goes off to college and doesn't do this, I'll wring her neck. And it's just like, jeez. But among that community, they believe they're in the right. I believe the state should stop these insane people from committing what I believe. I mean, look, if an adult human being makes a decision to get surgeries and do whatever, I'm like, okay, well, that's your life, right? You want to look like a cat and get implants in your face. But this child's been, in my view, tortured their whole life. They're depressed. They're morbidly obese. They're clearly not wanting to carry on with this. This is where I think the state needs to come in and save this person. Because it is on television, a woman saying, if you don't jam this in your wound, I will do it. And it's like, at what point is this physical abuse and psychological abuse? If you gave these people reins of their own community, they would keep doing things like this. There were genital mutilations going on in Dearborn, Michigan. We've talked about that was years ago. So I think that's a challenge for me with libertarianism, where you make this argument that parents have the final say in the healthcare of their children. And it's like, okay, well, this lady thinks healthcare is cutting off her daughter's tits. Like, I disagree with that. And they're like, well, of course, we all agree that's wrong. Yeah, well, they don't. And if we send in federal authorities to stop them, they'll scream civil war. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, I don't know what the solution to this is.
It's a dilemma because some parents are going to get it horribly wrong. And my question is, if we say that the state is in charge of protecting children, what if the crazies get to write the laws that start mandating these kinds of things?
They're doing that.
This was a conversation that when I got really interested in libertarianism, it was when I was interested in, I thought I was going to go into foster care and like work on adoption law, because there are all times that we agree there are children who are in incredibly dangerous situations with parents who are not fit to take care of them. And what do you do? Because if you believe in limited to no government, how do you also protect these children? And it was this crux that I never got a clear answer on. I hate to say that, because again, with transgenderism, it's a little bit different because people feel as though they are doing what's right, as opposed to like, more obvious. We can all agree this is a complete and total abuse. But what do you do? Make them wards of the state?
Yeah, I mean, before there was a welfare state, there were churches and other social institutions that emerged to
And hopefully
to help solve these problems.
Yeah,
and
but-
there is absolutely no perfect solution to a broken family.
I know, it's terrible. Because the thing is, like, you'd want to believe that a community organization, whether it's run by just the people of that community or their religious group, could also protect them, but ultimately we know that's not always the case. And
Yeah.
it just feels like, especially when you talk about young children, it's such a gamble and there's not a lot of time. You can't really say, oh, we'll try it with something with this batch and then we'll see if we get it right the next time, because you obviously
I just think that you're always better off with local peer pressure and community institutions making sure that children are okay. The further away you get from that child, all the way up to Washington, D.C., or, God help us, some global thing that's going to emerge, they don't give a damn about that kid.
No, they don't.
What about marketing, like corporations? Because television is local, it's in your house, but obviously the corporate headquarters could be in Kansas or wherever. So what are your
I mean, a corporation can't make you do what they want you to do unless they happen to be a pharmaceutical company that cuts a deal with the government to force you to take their product.
or show a kid cartoons of a guy eating sugar when they're 1, and then I guess it's up to the parent not to put the kid in front of the television
Yeah.
to get indoctrinated by the corporation
Yeah.
to buy their product.
Or stop the food industrial complex from hijacking the government nutrition standards. Again, I'll always go back to some corruption where big corporations get in bed with big business, they buy access, and they force you to do things that you didn't want to do. Obesity didn't come from nowhere. It came from those corporations hijacking that government process.
We're going to go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show if you really do like it, because word of mouth is one of the most powerful things you can do to help. And go to timcast.com, become a member by clicking Join Us, then join our Discord server. And if you get into the VIP chat, you can submit questions for our call-in segment, which happens in the members-only portion. At around 10 p.m., the uncensored show will go live. Hang out, it'll be a lot of fun. And then we'll take a handful of callers around 10:30 who actually can ask us questions and our guest questions. It was really, really amazing the past couple of nights. We're looking forward to it. Let's read what we got. Christina H. says, band camp. Haha, that's right. Band camp banned us and 5 times August and Bryson Gray because they're cultists.
And they just never respond. Like, this is the craziest thing. They'd even send you oh, you violated our terms of service. They
Because we
just
didn't.
said nothing.
They said, because we didn't break any rules, they're just, the cult is taking over these institutions. Mm-hmm. So be it. So be it. We're going to use alternatives. Maybe we'll build our own. Head over to trashhouserecords.com and pre-order the song, which goes live tonight at midnight. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
In March of 2022, Bandcamp was acquired by Epic Games. So it's actually Epic Games that banned you.
Really?
Yeah.
Epic Games bought Bandcamp? And
March
Epic
2nd,
Games is woke and crazy?
almost, yeah,
Wow.
apparently. I don't know.
The cult is expanding. They are at war with you. They are gathering resources. They are buying things up. All right. What do we got here? Bullseye Ben says, hey, Tim and crew, looks like our YouTube overlords are after y'all again. Keep up the great work. Yeah, it often seems that's the case.
Wow, guess who owns 40% of Epic Games? Tencent.
Wow.
There's
Ooh,
That
That's
explains
Chinese.
it. Yep.
a YouTuber called Moon, actually, who does a video about the ownership of a lot of these major corporations that is actually owned by Tencent. He did a whole video on Tencent. If you guys want to go watch it, he's a good YouTuber. Yeah. Anyways.
That explains it. We got banned from TikTok as well for no reason.
Yep. Tencent.
Yup. Yeah. See, that's why I'm saying I think China's doing a lot of this stuff. It's intentional. Here we are being like, go America. We got to push back. And then we get banned on these platforms. They are fighting a culture war, man. And you got people like Biden who are in on it.
Yeah. Kellen said, Epic Games is Fortnite for everybody, by the way. It's just if you don't know what it is, Epic Games is Fortnite. So.
Oh, wow. Noah Yelverton says, Tim won't read this, but I just wanted to say I agree with him that the terms left and right don't work anymore. But I think it's because people can't agree on what left wing and right wing is. It doesn't matter what they agree on what it is. It matters what it is. And the left and the right are tribal team names. That's it. It doesn't mean anything about your policies. It just means which team are you on. So when people are like liberal and left, it's like, well, all that really means is team name. I think we should call them like the Screeching Weasels, and we can be the Freedom faction.
I love it. That's good. Those
The
are great team
reeing
names.
weasels. The reeing weasels. It's like, because, like, are they left economically? Some of them, maybe. Are they, like, I mean, like, is the Lincoln Project left? You know what I mean? Like, they're of that same faction, but no. I don't know what they are. Never Trumper.
They're authoritarian.
Yeah.
I think that's the dividing line. Authoritarian or not.
Yeah. Collectivist. Cultist.
Yeah.
All right. Hamhawk says, Tim, I spent 10 years as promoter, booker, and talent buyer in my region. Put on lots of concerts and even some small festivals. Would love to be a part of Trash House. Any use for someone like me? Probably, but I don't know if we're at that level yet. So we'll see when we get there.
I want Trash House record merch.
We have some already.
Yeah, Carter was showing
Yeah.
me today, and they
Yeah.
look great.
Where do you get it?
I don't know yet. I don't know if
Teespring, I
it's.
think.
What do you
But
want?
I don't know if it's.
When you think
All
about
of it.
wearing something, like what is your first thought?
Well, I like big oversized T-shirts, and then Carter and I were talking about like tie-dyeing them or doing different stuff, so they're like more custom. So
Amos
I think
Moses
it's cool.
says, how far in is Hannah Claire in the Fast and Furious? Furiverse. Sorry, Fast and Furiverse.
I'm halfway through, and I like.
So like 4 or 5?
I'm on 5, and I watched like several of them back to back, and then just burned out. But I'm supposed. Sorry, I know that's sin in this room. I'm supposed to get to 9 or 10 before the next movie comes out.
Oh, the next one should be electric vehicles.
No,
They're
the
only
next- the
driving
next one's
electric.
That's what I was wondering. Like, are there going to be Teslas in it, or
For
like?
It's going back to
Sure.
its roots. They went completely in the wrong direction. I'm really disappointed because they had the last one with Charlize Theron and like, you know, it's the submarine and going to outer space and all that stuff. And now it's like a street race. And it's like, okay, I guess.
Are you a Fast and Furious guy?
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen the
Really?
new one, though.
Which one is your
The
favorite?
new one is in 10 that just came out, or that's not out yet. I don't
Not
think.
It's
I
not
know.
out yet. No.
No, but you saw the last one, right? When that
Yeah,
went to
that
outer
was
space.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Which one's the best one?
The space one.
The space
What
one.
do you
What do
think,
you
Matt?
think
Yeah.
is the best one?
I don't know. They're all great.
And they got John Cena in it now.
I just
That's
love
great.
when the family gets together at the end. That's the best part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all
whenever
about
I like
family.
mention I have to like do this challenge for Pop Culture Crisis, people are like, "It's all about the family," and I love
Look.
that as an idea. I just don't want to watch the rest of the movie.
DC has one of the best established universes in literature, in fiction. Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, all of these great story arcs. The Justice Lords arc, I love it. When Superman becomes evil and becomes a dictator and takes over the planet. There's a couple versions of it. One is like the Joker drugs him and he kills Lois or something like that. And then Superman's like, if only, you know, like you let me kill him or whatever. And then he goes nuts and then he just starts killing all of the, like, there's great story arcs. And they couldn't make a movie series. They couldn't do it. It was all garbage. Then you get some old 2000s movie about street racing and they've turned it into The Avengers. You know what? They deserve it. They deserve it. I want to see
It's a
Dom get
compelling
superpowers.
argument. I get that. I guess I'm not enough of a car person to appreciate it. But
It's not about cars.
sorry,
I don't know
it's
anything about cars. They went to outer
family.
space.
Sorry, I forgot. It's about family.
Did it start off as about cars, though?
They're like,
Sort of.
I mean, it's like a central theme, right? They're street racing, and then they're like stealing cars. And
Yeah, the
there's, like,
first
illegal
couple
gang-
was about street racing.
And I'm
They talk
still-
about like engines and like
But now
the
they're-
CCs of the
I'm
engine. and
still
all that.
in that part of this where it is like there's stuff going on, but it's largely about the car chase scenes. Like
Then
I'm
you
about
get,
to
like-
transition into the second
Is
half.
the
where-
Rock there yet? Because then what happens is they get
yeah.
tapped as like a crack team of, you know, special agents to get the job done. And then, you know, the Rock is like, we need your help. And then, you know, then you got Shaw, who's like this bad guy, Jason Statham, but then he becomes a good guy or whatever, and then his sister or something, and Charlize Theron's in it. Like, they're getting all these celebrities in it. It's like better than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I want Transformer crossover or superpowers. Let's
I'm
read
gonna
some
love
more
you.
super
I
chats.
just think that like one blonde guy and that girl should just get married by now. Like that's what's bothering me.
they gotta
like,
save it to the end,
They need
probably.
to commit.
Well,
It's
it's
hard to
do
It's
when
about
you're,
family.
Yeah, then put a ring on
That's
it.
the point.
Let's make some moves
All right.
here.
Ghostface says Ian rolled a -1 with that take on Obama.
Which one?
When you were like, Obama should be allowed to
should
murder
not be in
children
prison?
because he was the
Oh
president.
God, I just don't want to start persecuting and arresting former presidents. I think you mentioned that earlier too, Matt. It just starts a cycle of banana
Yeah,
Republic
but
crap. You
I
don't
think
want
the
that.
cycle is getting worse because we don't do it. They have no fear. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, when I get in, I can do whatever I want and get away with it. And like they're going after Trump because he's accused of paying a woman not to talk about having sex. That's it. Jeez.
By the way, it shouldn't be a president. It should be freaking Congress, which has the responsibility of declaring war and has the responsibility for holding the executive branch in check. it should be done that way, but they will never do it.
And Ian, that one gamer says Anwar was killed September 30th, 2011. Abdul Rahman was killed October 14th, 2011. Anwar was already dead for almost a month.
Wow.
So it wasn't even sending his dad a message.
No, it was just killing the family.
Yeah, I appreciate the super chat with the -1 because it's a hard thing to talk about, like whether a president should have the ability to just drone strike random people around the earth. That's kind of.
Yep. Tony Ty says, hey, Tim, I'm really feeling the member segment after IRL, especially with the call-in questions. I was wondering if y'all could go a little bit longer or maybe take calls off the bat. We actually have been going longer. They've been going about 10 minutes longer with the call-ins, so we've been splitting 20 minutes of uncensored show, 20 minutes of talk. I think it's a good balance. There's a lot of people who just want the cussing and the jokes and the serious topics. And then I think a lot of people are really big into the call-ins. I think the call-ins may be the best value that we can bring to you guys as members. I think that takes the members-only segment to a whole new level of community building, of value, opportunity, and all that. I'm really excited for it. And again, Ian's idea, very good idea.
Oh my gosh, I love it. We could technically have a call going the entire night and just because we go off and start riffing while you're on the call.
There's a lag. It's for the people who are listening. It's hard to talk back and forth.
Oh,
yeah. Well, we got to figure that out. Because we like radio shows have call-in producers who will be like, "Hey, you're on now, go," whereas we don't. So what happens is when someone calls in, they don't know when to talk because the show has a delay.
Right. Plus, we're going through the internet. They're just using a phone network, so it's a lot easier for them.
All right. OMG Puppy says white phosphorus and depleted uranium are both war crimes done by NATO in Belgrade and Iraq. Even NATO troops in Serbia got cancer from the uranium dust. Now Britain sending depleted uranium to Ukraine. Yeah, we're heading that way, baby. It's going to get bad. Pat Meadows says Obama executed an American citizen who was a minor. That he did. Yep. Barack Obama, vote for me. We'll blow up kids. Gotta blow them up. Too many of them.
Are you auditioning for Freedom Tunes right now?
No, that actually was Seamus's joke.
You're hired.
Gotta blow them up. Too many of them. Seamus never made that cartoon, though. He's got to do it.
Seamus.
Barack Obama. Where is he at?
Seamus, get over here.
Yeah, no. He's like, we keep telling him to come, and then he's just like, meh. He's like, I don't want to come.
The weather's nice now, Seamus. You can come back.
B Pace says, Tim, you're wanting the president to be treated like every other citizen. That sounds very libertarian. Are you and Ian open to supporting libertarianism? If so, why haven't you? I'd like your thoughts. The Mises Caucus guys are great. We've been talking all day about Dave Smith. I would love to see. He's going. Do you know if he's going to announce he's running or whatever? I'm waiting. I don't want to.
There's actually legal reasons not to.
Right.
I have no idea if he's going to run or not, but once you announce, then you have to raise hard dollars, and it's a nightmare.
Michael Malice, press secretary. I'm so excited.
Huge advocate of libertarianism in general. I get concerned about it as a political party because I find interventionism is valuable a lot of times. A lot of times, this whole like hands off, if we ignore it, it'll go away problem. The kind of thing I don't get down with. I am speaking May 13th at the TakeHumanActionTour.com. It's the Mises Caucus. I believe it's Mises Caucus is putting it on. And that's in Oakland.
And I think I would love to, I'm not sure what the deal is, but do some kind of debate / forum when the Libertarian Party has like announces and they're in full swing. I'm assuming it's going to be Dave Smith. We don't know because he hasn't announced or whatever. It may be Dave Smith with Maj Touré as VP, which is just, it's amazing. And Michael Mouse as a press secretary. I just would love to do a sit down, big show, get an audience to come in, get a big venue and do something. Maybe set up some kind of debate or something. I think it'd be fantastic.
How do you guys feel about Justin Amash? Because there's still some question about whether or not he runs.
I don't know him. I don't know much about him.
I've heard good things, but I think he has like I'm pretty sure he had like a bad track record during the Trump administration, but I have to look into it because I'm willing to review these things. It's been a really long time. I haven't followed too much. I've had a bunch of people, because he switched from Republican to Libertarian. Yeah. So I've had Libertarian people tell me this is actually good and to take a look. But the only thing I really remember from his tenure was that he was like never Trumper. And that was his bid. Oh, the Republican Party is bad and Trump, so I quit. And it's like, well, now look where we are. That's real great leadership. But I like Dave Smith, and Dave Smith's been, against Trump for a long time, but I can respect someone who's got the position. So, I'm willing to take a look into Amash's
I think Justin
arguments.
Was one of the first to adopt Minds when we built the website. He was like on it early. I think so. He was in something very early where I realized he was like red-pilled and awake as to what was going on like in 2011 or 2013 or something. I'd love to interview him and talk to him.
He'd be interesting to have on, and he was absolutely anti-Trump as a member of Congress, but he has a long career before that. So if that one thing is a deal killer for you, it's worth looking at what he's willing to do.
Yeah, it's not, like Dave Smith rags on Trump all the time, and I think Dave Smith's great. You know what I mean? Like Luke rags on Trump all the time. I don't care if people are mad about Trump. I just care that they have real arguments behind why they're mad about Trump. And so Dave, and we had the discussion about foreign policy and all this stuff, and he's right about a lot of it. And I'm like, I can respect that, absolutely. I just have a slightly different opinion. Like if we got a leftist to come in here, like we're having Destiny on the show next week, and I'm a big fan. I think he's a good dude. I disagree with him on stuff. And I think he's good at what he does. He makes good arguments, but I think he's good at arguing, he's good at debating. I disagree. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is like, if he comes in here and he's like, well, don't you think X, Y, and Z about transgender surgeries? And I'll be like, I don't. And he'll be like, well, what about this, that, and other? Well, I guess we just disagree on that. And that's fine. We're allowed to disagree. As long as you have an argument and reasoning behind it, like I'll argue with you. And if you say something like, deep within my soul, I personally feel abortion should be legal, I'll be like, well, how do you argue? There's no argument. Someone just says, I feel like, based on my morals and stuff. It's like, well, okay.
Yeah, rather than trying to come out as a victor in the debate itself is the victory, in my opinion. The conversation, the pleasant, that's the key.
Yeah, if like the end result is, like we had a lot on the show, and he was talking about why he's in favor of intervention and stuff. He's saying because we don't want a multipolar world, we want the U.S. to be on top so that it prevents war and, and these horrible things. So the U.S. doing the blah, 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 and I don't want to, overstate what he was saying because I don't want to put wrong words in his mouth. But I'm like, I got mad. Like I was yelling at him. I was pissed off. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like the foreign policy of this country, blah, blah. But, in the end, like he's been on the show several times. He reports for us on the ground. He's allowed to have that opinion. And he has reasons behind them. He's explained them in great detail. And I've argued with him and I got really angry, but like, that's fine.
Well, you want the diversity of thought. Like if he is
absolutely
reasonable and well-informed, even if you don't agree with him, it's better to have him talking than to just have people saying like, oh, yeah, I agree with you. Excellent,
he's such a neocon.
I know. He's a Bolton bro with his mustache.
He's a Bolton bro with his mustache. Yeah.
I know what he's saying.
Uh-huh.
I hear you a lot,
we
even
like
if no one else does.
Love you, dog. Yeah, he's a Bolton bro. He got the mustache.
Oh my gosh, his mustache is off the chin.
Serge, you want to defend mustaches?
We came up with that, Elad. We came up with that, but
Bolton
whatever.
Bros.
Oh yeah, I think that was technically Serge.
It wasn't even really like serious. But
I'm sorry, you also have a mustache, Matt. Are you in favor of John Bolton?
I'm not Team Bolton.
Oh, so does Tim.
It's literally the only.
Every man in this room has a mustache. I'm reporting live from Bolton Bro headquarter.
I mean,
the only redeeming thing about Bolton is his mustache.
His mustache is so awesome.
Everything else is morally repugnant.
It's so bushy. Do you think he smokes pipes? It's a little brown.
He just sort of looks like a walrus to me, like,
his
but
voice
in a pleasant way.
Was not what I expected.
Let's
more manly.
Let's read.
Voice.
Marvin Carlson says depleted uranium is toxic, mostly as a heavy metal like cadmium. Tungsten can also be used instead of depleted uranium. Uranium is easier to machine and less expensive than tungsten. We use depleted uranium nose weights in 727s. Well,
interesting.
Infernal Saxon says depleted uranium has a self-sharpening property.
Yeah.
And when it's searing hot, so when it penetrates the tank, it ignites gases inside and then causes it to become an inferno.
Jeez.
Yep. All right. Mike Gibson says, I was in the Army Signal Corps in the 90s. Outstanding orders if we had to abandon our equipment, namely 2 grenades in the switch, burn all documentation. Someone ordered the troops to leave that equipment intact. Whoa.
Yeah, man. So in the switch, I imagine that means like in a vulnerable position within the tank or what in the thing. I don't know what that term means, but you use 2 grenades to blow it up. Make sure they can't be used again. I've also heard they use thermite, which is a military grade incendiary that you can use to melt steel beams.
Jeffrey Grajic says, Ian is the modern day Diogenes. He practiced being ridiculed by walking backwards into a theater exit while others were exiting. Keep asking the hard questions regardless of what others say about you.
That's awesome. He's Diogenes the cynic.
Is that who it is?
Yeah, a Greek philosopher, one of the founders of cynicism. I like it. Yeah, I humiliated myself on purpose. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but after it started to happen, I realized it kind of gave me strength of character.
Clef the Misfit says, how the hell can you say DeSantis is weak when he smacked down Biden, Fauci, Disney, teachers unions, and the Florida GOP establishment, taking near king-like control of the state? We need Luke back to set you straight, Tim. I will explain. Because I've already pointed out, policy-wise, he hits the nail on the head with the hammer. But in terms of his character, his personality, that's what I'm talking about. Trump didn't have the policy. Like, Get rid of Fauci. Don't do the lockdowns. Policy, fail. But he has the screw you, you can't tell me what to do. He had good policy, like securing our borders, bringing jobs back, and foreign policy was exquisite. I don't necessarily know what DeSantis will do on foreign policy. There are fears that he might go neocon. I don't know if that's fair to say because we just don't know. My point is this. Ron is getting it done on paper, but then when he's standing in front of the cameras, Milo Yiannopoulos put it well. I don't know if you saw his comment. He said he has the charisma of something moist, like when you're reaching for something and accidentally touch a wet sponge. Like, it was very well put. It is funny. Like, DeSantis doesn't have the same kind of gravitas as Trump. That's what I'm saying. The strength of character, of personality. I think policy-wise, he's getting it done perfectly. So that's why I'm saying, like, what do we need more of, All right, where are we at? Convincing reality says not everything everyone does revolves around Trump. That's blinkered. DeSantis has actually made moves in his state, hasn't declared himself for the presidency, and he isn't Trump's campaign manager. Yeah, I know. I like DeSantis. We'll see what happens. If he ends up winning, I'll vote for him. Sparky says DeSantis just changed his mind in Piers Morgan and is now pro-Ukraine war. I saw that too. You see, that's what we're worried about.
What did he say? Why he was pro-Ukraine?
I don't know. You want to look it up? Because he was saying like we shouldn't be involved, and then the media attacked him for it, and then he came back and was like, oh, they're misinterpreting what I'm saying, or something like that. Michelle Corley says DeSantis sold out to rhinos. He has ruined his career. President Trump is the one. I like Trump.
I'm just saying, like, what if we had 4 years of Trump, then we had 8 years of DeSantis? Maybe
it just seems
cool.
impractical that we get 3 consecutive Republican terms.
For sure.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't think Trump will run again after this. You have to take age into account. If you think potentially he's good, maybe this is his term and DeSantis has a future. He's still really young.
Sparky says DeSantis was anti-Ukraine war on Tucker's questionnaire, but just changed to pro-Ukraine war on Piers Morgan.
What I'm reading about is he referred to it as a territorial dispute, and then now he's maybe he's walking back that characterization. So in the beginning, it sounds like he saw it kind of like I do, which is that the Russian Federation is attempting to colonize Crimea and take roads into Sevastopol, the Donbass, because they want that trade port in the Mediterranean, territorial. It's not a genocide. None of this like we're going to kill those people kind of thing. They want trade. That's what it looks like. But maybe he's walked that back. I'll look deeper.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, it's now or we're all dead. I can't help but agree with that statement. The downward spiral is real and it's here. Damn it, Ian. Decisions.
Yeah, dog, but I do not like using fear as a motivation. It's not like do it or else. Use this because that one sucks. I don't like that crap, but it is a desperate. And we need to work together fast and accurately now.
Tyler Bratton says, due to federal employee protections, the president did not have the power to fire Fauci. Who did we have on? We had someone on who said that wasn't true. I think it was Matt Gaetz, actually. Someone said that you don't fire them, you isolate, and then a month later they're gone. It's like you can fire them, it can be done. Yeah, it was Gaetz. That was not Gaetz, yeah. Yeah, like you can take any federal employee and then completely isolate them from every position, and then within a month you're terminated.
You could certainly marginalize them. And
yeah.
Part of the problem is that we gave him the microphone, and it was the Fauci show.
Oh, wait, when Trump standing behind him,
Yeah.
looking, yeah.
I don't know what Trump was thinking. Or maybe he wasn't at all. Addison Miller says, I live in Alaska and we've been fighting for years to expand development. The problem is most of the land is owned by the Fed or is a national park. I think we got to invade and occupy Alaska. That was Daniel Turner and Jack Posobiec talked about that. Occupy Alaska. It's like it's American territory. Mm-hmm. It's massive. It's a third the size of the United States. And we're just not doing anything with it. Like, there's tons of opportunity up there.
I keep thinking about fusion, and I wanted to ask you about it, Matt, because you've talked a lot about energy independence. And it's a little bit off topic. We only have a few minutes left, but do you think it's like a path that we should head towards? It's too dangerous for people to have that?
I don't know, but I would love to have an environment where that sort of entrepreneurial innovation was allowed to happen and let science and entrepreneurs figure that stuff out. Maybe Elon can figure it out.
Dradmax says, Tim, I'm still in the Pee-wee membership level and want to upgrade without canceling and resubscribing. Please take my money. Yes. I think the issue is that we have instructions on how to do that in the Discord. So we'll make sure that's in the standard lounge for any member to hang out to see the pin instructions. Let's make sure we can do that. So here's what we're doing. We're doing 2 things with that. Because I mentioned the purpose of the $25 level to get access to the VIP room or 6 months is because we don't want to make people spend more money to get access, but we also need a way to control for bad actors who are going to try and come in and screw things up and get us banned. And that's a reality no matter what we do. But for the voice chat, we have to be a bit more strict. But what we're going to do is we're going to create what we're calling, I guess, like the Silver Lounge, which is if you pay $25, not only do you get access to the VIP chat room for call-ins, but you will get a special $25 level. Because otherwise, it's just like, what are you really getting for the money other than, and then after 6 months, you can reduce your membership now that you've passed that gate or whatever. Then with the Elite Club, this is the more costly social club element we're building out. It's $100 a month for this room, but we're giving people access to testing out apps and games, early access to the stuff we're working on. So you're basically like in the club. So when we are like working on song stuff, like we'll like, here's a part of a new song we're working on. You'll get direct access to all the internal stuff we're working on, like top secret stuff. And that one is a combination of, we want to build like a social club in a physical space that comes to the coffee shop we're building. And we also need to be able to trust a certain level of trust that like, hey, if we share with you like something, you don't, leak it or whatever. Like, here's a new song we're working on, and all of a sudden it's like ends up on the internet or whatever.
Yeah, because tonight I want to play Bright Eyes on the after show, but it's just a little premature and it's coming out at midnight. Maybe it'd be cool to show
We'll play it for the Elite Discord. We'll put it in there somehow or something. The Elite members will get to listen to the song tonight. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and become a member by going to timcast.com, clicking join us, getting on the Discord, and then we're going to have that members only uncensored show coming up in about 10 minutes where we will take your calls. Should be a lot of fun. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. And what else did I need to say? Is that everything? Oh, yeah. TrashHouseRecords.com. Pre-order the song. It's coming out at midnight. And so we need to do a big push all next week because we're going to try and get on Billboard again. Four in a row. Maybe we don't. But the last 3 songs have all got on Billboard, so we're 3 for 3. It'll be awesome if we're 4 for 4 and we keep rubbing their faces in it. Because when we send out emails being like, hey, new song was released, we actually got some of these corporate press outlets saying F you, like literally like screw you, F off. So we'll see. Matt, you want to shout anything out?
Sure. I'm going to shout out my friend Matt Battaglia, who's our executive producer. He has a new book out, a comic book, House on Fire. It's a dystopian story about this unbelievable world where the government tells you that you can't leave your neighborhood, that they make it very difficult to find the medicine that your wife needs, and otherwise living in this unbelievable dystopian future that sounds a lot like America today. And you can find this at your favorite shop, and you can also find this on the big guys like Amazon. Go to freethepeople.org if you want to check out our videos, and we also have some cool merch there as well.
Cool. Right on.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for Timcast.com. You should go to, you should follow at Timcast News on Instagram and Twitter. It's great. You can see a lot of work from our journalists, all of it really, and including a review of House on Fire by Chris Bertman, who is an awesome member of our news team. So go there, follow them. If you want to follow me personally, you can find me on Instagram at hannahclaire.b and on Twitter at HCBrimlow. Thanks so much.
Chris Bertman, also an excellent actor, by the way. Nice job, Chris, on the Cast Castle.
Yeah.
I like your work. Matt, always a pleasure, man. Great stuff. House on Fire. Check it out. And I want to just, this in from Carter Banks. If you guys want to get merch tonight, Trash House Records, it is trashhouserecords.creator-spring.com. And that's trashhouserecords.creator-spring.com. You can rewind the video if you need the link.
And we're definitely getting to the point now where we want to expand into other artists doing more music than just like the 4 songs we've put out. We've put out, this is our 3rd song put out through Trash House. Will of the People was put out a couple of years ago. Those first 3 songs, Will of the People, and then the 2 we put out did really well on Billboard. Hopefully this next one does with your help. But then we can actually start finding more music and,
Yeah, Landon Starbuck last night played some of her music for us. It was incredible. Her voice is amazing. It was beautiful. So
Bill and Culture. We're going to get it.
We will do that, and we will do that tonight at timcast.com. See you then.
Yeah. Join the website. Video chat us, like what is it called, like phone in. Yeah, phone in,
Phone
guys.
in.
Yeah, phone in. I'll see you there. Bye.
All right, everybody. We will see you all at timcast.com in about 7 or so minutes. You'll be on the front page. You'll see it, uncensored after show. Click it. It'll be live. And if you're in the Discord, we will take some of your calls. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all there.